Chapter 323. Zhao Jiuqian's heart skipped a beat. A foreboding premonition rose in her eyes, but he immediately suppressed it. In this competition, Cleansing Temple was determined to obtain the treasure furnace's remnant spirit. They had already made thorough preparations. There was absolutely no way there would be any problems. Humph humph. White foam foam. Once you arrive at my Cleansing Temple, everything will be beyond your control. Zhao Jiuqian coldly sneered and stepped onto the stage. But soon he stopped and bowed with awe. Greetings, revered Yuan. Yuan Tiangang had a light expression. Zhao Jiuqian, I already know of your bet with White Foam Foam. If you can win, I can guarantee your future prospects will be limitless. Zhao Jiuqian was overjoyed. He nodded repeatedly. On the other side, Ming Siyuan's figure appeared in front of the people from the great desolate lake. His complexion was heavy. Young master, you were too careless. I have already obtained news that Cleansing Temple has secretly made arrangements to seize the treasure furnace's remnant spirit. Zhao Jiuqian's bet is definitely a trap. Although our great desolate lake isn't afraid, there is always a chance. His cold eyes fell on Black Bebe. You were right next to her, so why didn't you stop the miss? Black Bebe wanted to cry. It wasn't that he didn't stop her, but when this little miss put on airs, who could stop her? White Foam Foam looked around. Because of revered Ming, no one dared to look in their direction. She immediately revealed an excited expression and said in a low voice, Uncle Ming, don't worry. With how smart he is, how could he jump into a pit if he knew it was one? This time, Zhao Jiuqian will definitely be played to death by his own stupidity. Looking at White Fengfeng's smug and gloating expression, Black Bebe frowned. His alchemy skills were similar to Zhao Jiuqian's, and Zhao Jiuqian had a high-grade pill furnace in his hand. Yesterday, he had spent a great deal of effort to refine pills and still ended up in a disadvantageous position. His chances of defeating him were slim. Could his cousin have some incredible hidden card in her hands that could turn the tables in the competition? White Foam Foam curled her lips. She proudly said, Stupid cousin, you still don't understand? What Zhao Jiuqian said is that he will take first place. As long as he doesn't take first place, I will win. Her face lit up with worship. Did you forget that it isn't just us participating in the competition this time? There is also my incomparably fierce big brother Baoyu. If my brother Baoyu takes action, Zhao Jiuqian and Zhao Xintian will all be finished. Black Bebe was suddenly enlightened. Although he hadn't had much contact with that mysterious senior Baoyu, his admiration and awe towards him was like a surging river that flowed endlessly. That bastard Zhao Jiuqian, although he had some strength and Cleansing Temple's preparations weren't weak compared to senior Baoyu, he was nothing. Ming Siyuan's complexion also relaxed a great deal. His eyes flashed and he said, Young master, if you really win the bet, then make the same request. Bring Zhao Jiuqian back to the great desolate swamp for half a year. White Fengfeng's eyes widened. She suddenly clapped her hands. Uncle Ming, it's really you who is cunning and far-sighted. She had originally planned to make the detestable Zhao Jiuqian kneel down and kowtow 100 times before slapping her own mouth. Now that I think about it, it's too easy for him. If we bring him to our house, we'll be afraid that he won't listen to us. At least I can think of hundreds of fun ways to do that. Ming Siyuan's expression stiffened. Brother Qin Baoyu was standing in front of the pill furnace with a helpless look on his face. He didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, but the cracks that crisscrossed across its surface seemed to have shrunk a little compared to yesterday. Of course, Qin Yu didn't care too much about this right now. What he wanted to know was just how he was going to survive this crisis. Yesterday, Qin Yu had already tried to communicate with this damn pill furnace and have it raise its noble mouth and stop swallowing pills. In fact, he even offered to give them more high-quality pills as compensation. He thought this would work, but he never imagined he would be flatly rejected. In particular, this damn pill furnace had an expression that said it didn't want to talk to an idiot. This nearly caused his lungs to explode with rage. But although he was angry, if he wanted to obtain the treasure furnace's remnant spirit, he had to temporarily endure it. Qin Yu clenched his teeth and coldly said, "I have no opinion on you eating pills, but since you chose me, you must have your reasons. I believe that you don't want to completely tear apart all pretense of cordiality with me." After a pause, Chinyu laid out his conditions. "You can eat pills, but you must leave behind at least one pill for me so that I can complete the test. Otherwise, we will part ways. If you want to eat pills in the future, you'll have to find someone else." The pill furnace didn't respond. Chinyu remained expressionless. The air was quiet, with a bit of pressure. After a long time, the pill furnace on the ground reluctantly opened its lid and fell back down, emitting a light clang. This was considered an agreement. Chinyu was overjoyed, but his complexion didn't ease at all. He still maintained his cold and harsh appearance. "Light the fire." The furnace fire ignited on its own and soon finished preheating. Then, Chinyu took out the first pill materials he had chosen. The refinement went smoothly. Within his divine sense, the medicinal efficacy of the materials in the pill furnace began to rapidly fuse together. After several breaths of time, a light medicinal fragrance wafted out, indicating that the refinement was complete. Just as Chinyu thought that his callous appearance and resolute words had shaken the pill furnace, the sound of chewing suddenly echoed out. It was like some sort of dark joke, leaving him feeling embarrassed. Clang, clang, clang. The lid of the furnace opened and closed again, like a wildly laughing mouth filled with ridicule. Chinyu's field of vision darkened. He took a deep breath and clenched his teeth. "You're ruthless." He turned around and took out the second set of materials to continue refining. Luckily, the third stage of the pill refinement didn't have any requirements for the quality of the pill. It was fine as long as it reached the 4th grade. Thus, the South Shine Nation only gave him 3 sets of materials for each pill. Even so, Chinyu had to hurry up. This was because according to this damned pill furnace's character, it wouldn't stop until it ate up all the materials. In other words, Chinyu needed to refine 30 sets of materials in 3 days. If he was too slow, he wouldn't be able to make it in time. As Chinyu was frantically refining pills, White Fong Fong was the first to complete her refinement. After handing over the pill and the remaining materials, she took out her hand phone and opened the official app. Indeed, she had gained 2 new points. She stuck out her tongue. She had only cared about being fast, and the quality of the pill would be affected. Originally, she could have obtained 3 points, but she couldn't care about this right now. The new points appeared. The originally gray points that couldn't be used turned bright. White Fong Fong quickly exchanged 2 points for a nighttail flower. After the exchange was complete, she smiled and continued to refine the second 4th grade pill. Zhao Jiuqian was the second to complete his refinement. According to the temporary ranking list released by the official app, he could easily see that White Fong Fong had refined a pill before him. Even so, his expression was calm and his lips curved in a confident sneer. The reason she was fast now was because she was refining the pill she was most skilled in. There were still 9 4th grade pills left, and with White Feng Feng's age, it was impossible for her to be proficient in all of them. The time to truly open up the gap between them hadn't arrived yet. Zhao Jiuqian chose to exchange 2 points for a 7-colored spore. Black Bebe was the third to complete his refinement. He looked at the exchange list, and his eyes flashed. He chose the item he wanted to exchange for, 7 aperture flower. The price was 1 point. Following that, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, all of them completed their refinement. After some more time, when most of the proud children of heaven from all over had begun refining their second pill, a large number of successful refinements began to appear. The stock of materials in the storeroom fell at an astonishing speed. Several of the most sought-after pills, such as Century Year Spring Water, 5 Spirit Fruit, South Sea Purple Bamboo, and so forth, were all exchanged for in a short period of time. When the stock reached 0, the picture on the official app turned gray, indicating that they had been taken off the shelves. Chinyu hurriedly refined 3 sets of materials and finally harvested one. A massive amount of medicinal efficacy had been sucked out of it, nearly causing it to fall below the 4th grade. By this time, the material storeroom had already undergone 2 rounds of cleansing. As he looked at the materials on the official app on his hand phone that had dimmed and couldn't be exchanged for any more, his complexion paled. He clenched his teeth for a long time before carefully placing the pill into his storage ring and continuing to refine pills. The materials in the storeroom were already incomplete. Although he could still make several good pills with the remaining materials, there was a 99% chance that he wouldn't be able to use them because the materials were incomplete. Rather than wasting points, he might as well wait until the end. Perhaps there would still be a chance. Another reason was that he had to hand in pills every time. To Chinyu, this was far too much of a waste of time. To refine 30 sets of materials in 3 days was no small challenge for him. One day passed, and then another. In the blink of an eye, it was the last day. Zhao Jiutian refined the fastest. At the end of the first day, he had finished refining 10 types of 4th-grade pills. His speed was the fastest out of everyone present. Unfortunately, he still wasn't able to exchange for all of the materials he needed for the 4th stage. Black Bebe. Zhao Jiutian clenched his teeth, his complexion dark and gloomy. He spent 10 points to exchange for a ghost-faced lotus leaf. There were originally 3 sets of this in the material storeroom, but before he could exchange for them, Black Bebe had exchanged for them all in a single go. It was clear that he had already guessed that what he wanted to refine was the child and mother Yin-Yang pill. This bastard, his eyesight was truly amazing. He hadn't been able to deceive him when he tried to exchange for the materials. But like this, Black Bebe would be crippled before he entered the 4th stage and would no longer be a threat to him. Using the 10 points he obtained in the 2nd stage to exchange for Black Bebe's early elimination wasn't necessarily a loss. Moreover, if Black Bebe could think of this, could he, Zhao Jiutian, not think of it as well? It was just that he never imagined that the Great Desolate Lake would place all their bets on that little girl, White Feng Feng. He feared that his previous arrangements wouldn't be able to thoroughly suppress her. But this wasn't anything at all. She was just a little girl who was still wet behind the ears. So what if she was the Great Desolate Lake's young master? Could she even be placed on par with him? Zhao Jiutian revealed a confident smile. He would definitely take first place in this competition. On the Great Desolate Lake side, White Feng Feng pursed her lips. Stupid cousin, how could you use all your points to deal with that scoundrel Zhao Jiutian? Don't you know how to call someone else? Black Bebe forced a smile. Ming Siyuan's eyes flashed with appreciation. He lightly said, "Young master, after you entered the martial field, Yin Ilan activated the isolation array so that no information can be transmitted. Black Bebe's actions are to sacrifice his own competition to create trouble for Zhao Jiutian and create a greater opportunity for you." White Feng Feng opened her mouth, but didn't say anything. She humphed and said, "The last type of trap vine that I needed has also been exchanged for. If I were to exchange for it with the competition authorities, I would need 6 points." Ming Siyuan lightly said, "Exchange for it. Entering the 4th stage is the true peak of this competition. Young master, the treasure furnace's remnant spirit is extremely important to my Great Desolate Lake. I hope that you can give it your all and not be careless." White Feng Feng nodded. Her eyes shined as if they could shine. With Black Bebe's understanding of her, at this time, this girl absolutely didn't realize that she was carrying a tremendous pressure on her shoulders, so her fighting spirit had been ignited. Perhaps she was thinking that she would soon be able to see her big brother Baoyu. Reality proved that Black Bebe's guess was correct. There were only a small number of cultivators that could smoothly enter the 4th stage. And amongst these small number of cultivators, there were even fewer that could rank near the top. Chapter 3:24. As the 3rd stage of the competition entered its final day, the truth was that there wasn't much meaning to it. Those that hadn't been able to refine 10 types of 4th-grade pills weren't too strong. Even if they managed to barely enter the 4th stage, they would only be supporting characters and wouldn't have the chance to compete for the final rankings. Thus, the South Shine Nation officials had a very relaxed attitude towards this matter. After 2 days of rigorous appraisal, the rankings had already been determined. There wouldn't be any more changes. As for those that hadn't come out yet, they would either be eliminated or be added to the back of the rankings. It was simple. Behind the supervisor's seats, as Lord Huan Hehe saw that the competition was about to end, He stood up. Amidst the flattering voices around him, he prepared to leave. Every time the competition reached this step, there would always be many freaks that would appear. They would be unwilling to accept their final defeat, or they would pretend to lose their memories and go crazy in order to gain sympathy, or they would pester and beg for a chance to make a name for themselves. Lord Hulu and Hee had seen these sorts of situations far too many times. He didn't want to waste even a minute because of them. Thus, leaving early was a good choice. However, just as Lord Hulu and Hee turned around, a subordinate suddenly flew over. This subordinate had a strange complexion, as if he were suffering from constipation. My lord, please judge whether or not this participant's pill is qualified." Lord Hulu and Hee had an impression of this subordinate. He was a cultivator under his command who had some accomplishments in the field of alchemy. Could it be that there was still someone who could cause him some trouble? With a trace of curiosity, Lord Hulu and Hee received the jade box. After opening it, he frowned and his eyes gradually darkened. Within the jade box were a total of 10 pills. Each one gave off a feeling as if they were on the verge of death. That's right, this was the feeling. 4th grade pills. Fine, let's call them 4th grade pills for the time being. But Lord Hulu and Hee swore that he had never seen 4th grade pills in such a miserable state before. Each one was about to reach the boundary of the 4th grade. It was as if with just a single breath, they would all fall into the 3rd grade. How could there be such a coincidence? Lord Hulu and Hee's first thought was that someone was using this chance to demonstrate against the organizers of the competition. But he immediately suppressed this thought. Unless there was something wrong with their brains, who would dare to do such a thing? Who refined these elixirs? One of his subordinates turned around and pointed. Lord Hulu and Hee calmly looked over. His expression was blank for a moment before turning ashen. If he wasn't shrewd enough, he would have cursed out loud. It was that bastard again. In the Pill Furnace Pagoda, he had played around with everyone. In the second stage of the alchemy stage, he had been a bit more reserved, handing over a barely medium-grade 4th grade pill. But now he had come again, trying to please the crowd with claptrap. Did he really think that he would be able to gain attention by doing this? Lord Hulu and Hee suppressed his anger. His eyes suddenly brightened as he locked onto the 10 pills in the jade box. He swore that if any of the 10 pills failed, he would not hesitate to sweep this bastard off the list. After a dozen or so breaths, Lord Holen closed the jade box, his complexion becoming increasingly unsightly. These seemingly half-dead pills were actually all 4th grade pills, even if they were only a hair's breadth away from falling. This bastard was absolutely doing this on purpose. Just what did he want to do? Just what did he want to do? He wished he could shove this bastard into the ground and stomp on him 100 times. But rules were rules. Since he had refined a pill that met the requirements in the allotted time, no matter how angry he was, he couldn't ruin the fairness of the competition because of his personal emotions. Consider him qualified. On the ranking list, give him last place. Lord Hulu and Hee flicked his sleeves and left. Cheen, you didn't know that he had already been bitterly loathed by a group of official cultivators. After obtaining an icy cold qualified reply, he didn't have time to be surprised by their attitude. He quickly opened the official app on his handphone. As he thought, there was a vast expanse of ash gray. If he had chosen to exchange for it before, all of the materials he had obtained would have been wasted. Cheen Yu's fingers rapidly slid down, and the storeroom of materials was soon scrolled to the bottom. His heart chilled with the remaining materials. It seemed that he couldn't gather any more to complete the pill recipe. Ha 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 ha. After 30 years of painstaking preparation, I wanted to soar into the heavens, but in the end, I suffered a crushing defeat. I couldn't even obtain a complete set of materials, so what if I could enter the 4th stage? I've been defeated. I've been thoroughly defeated in my life. Damned old heavens. Why must you be so cruel to me? The Howling Fellow had an early nascent soul cultivation base. According to his lifespan of 800 years, he was still very young. However, perhaps because he had suffered far too much, he looked like an 80 or 90-year-old man from the mortal world. At this time, his shriveled orange peel-like face was filled with pain and despair, as well as madness. If I fail, then none of you will succeed either. I have 10 points, and I will use them all to exchange for crepe myrtle grass, so that none of you will be able to gather the complete medicinal materials. If you want to fail, then all of you will fail together with me. The roaring continued in his ears. In the next moment, on the official app, the image of the crepe myrtle grass dimmed and turned gray, indicating that it had been taken off the shelves. Qin Yu's lips twitched. As he looked at the cultivator who was still cursing endlessly and was forcefully taken away by the official cultivators, he finally understood why this situation had occurred. Indeed, there are too many vile people in this world. If I don't have a good time, then you shouldn't either. This was truly troublesome. Could it be that he would really die here? His finger unconsciously traced across the official app 10 points. He only had 10 points. Suddenly, Qin Yu's finger froze. His eyes widened as he looked down at the points column. What greeted his eyes was a large 7. 7 points? How could it be 7 points? Qin Yu was strangely enraged. This young master hadn't slept or rested for 3 days and had worked himself to the bone to refine 30 sets of materials, all for the sake of obtaining these 10 fourth-grade pills. The agreement was that each pill would be 1 to 3 points. This young master knew that his performance wasn't good, but the lowest he should have given was 10 points, right? What the hell was this 7 points? Originally, he had seen his hard work come to an end, but now he had fallen into a tragic situation where he had no more pills to refine. He was already sad enough in his heart, but now his points were being deducted. Even if the competition was held by the South Shy Nation officials and they had a deep background, so what? They had to give an explanation for this matter. Qin Yu was indignant. He rushed towards an official cultivator who hadn't left yet. But at this time, what he didn't notice was that not too far away, one of the two cultivators' eyes brightened. He slightly turned around, and a light flashed on the surface of a button in front of him. The official cultivator who was caught by Qin Yu was stunned. He had refined 10 types of pills, and in the end only obtained 7 points. This was something he had never seen before. Looking at Qin Yu's angry expression, it shouldn't be fake. Otherwise, who would be so suicidal as to dare to slander the officials of the competition? Fellow Taoist, please wait a moment. I will immediately investigate it for you. The official took out his handphone and hurriedly contacted a superior official. At the same time, he asked for Qin Yu's number. Yes, participating cultivator number 9527. He handed in 10 types of pills, but the officials only obtained 7 points. It's fine. I'll wait a moment. You can investigate it yourself. Okay, I understand. I will handle it. After hanging up the phone, the official's eyes fell on Qin Yu, revealing a cold light. Fellow Taoist, I have already checked the results. There is nothing wrong with the points. In the third stage, every time you refine a type of fourth-grade pill, you can obtain 1 to 3 points. But the quality of the pills that fellow Taoist refined was too poor. After the appraisal committee decided to deduct 3 points from you as a punishment, he already knew that this was an order from above. It was clear that this cultivator in front of him was someone that some superior official didn't like. Towards this sort of person, he had to display a cold and callous attitude like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. This was to let the superior official know that he would firmly follow behind him and be his most loyal subordinate. Qin Yu frowned. I've never heard of a rule that deducts points. The official rolled his eyes. Starting from today, there will be. He glanced at Qin Yu, his expression indifferent. If you don't agree, you can file a complaint. He turned and walked away, a faint sneer spreading out. With this level of skill, you still have the face to ask for points? You might as well exchange for an eternal night demon mushroom and eat it. Qin Yu was stunned where he was. He had completely forgotten about this person's indifference and ridicule. Thoughts tumbled in his mind. Eternal night demon mushroom. Eternal night demon mushroom. He seemed to have heard this name somewhere before. Moreover, it could be used to refine a strange pill. Qin Yu closed his eyes. He flipped through the primary pill collection in his mind and soon found what he needed. Demon puppet pill. Using the eternal night demon mushroom as the raw material, fusing it with one's own blood and tempering 3 into 1. Only then could one form the pill. Behind this was a long and detailed introduction of the demon puppet pill. Finally, it mentioned that the demon puppet pill could summon a demonic path puppet and determine the rank of the pill based on the puppet's strength. This was an extremely strange pill. Even in the land of divinity and demons, there were very few cultivators that could refine it. This was because the demon puppet pill was far too weak. First was the difficulty of refining it. The demon puppet pill needed to fuse 3 eternal night demon mushrooms with one's own blood into 1. In order to accomplish this, one had to be at least an alchemy grandmaster. And any pill that an alchemy grandmaster could casually refine would have a value far higher than the demon puppet pill. Second was the power of the pill. The puppet summoned by the demon puppet pill could only last for an hour. It was extremely weak, roughly at the golden core level. With such strength, who would care about it? Moreover, it also needed to use one's own blood. The primary pill collection contained the recipe for the demon puppet pill. In the eyes of many people, it was only there to make up the numbers. But now, this demon puppet pill that made up the numbers gave Chinyu hope. Although he had skimmed through it just now, if you remember correctly, there should be more. He hurriedly opened the official app. Sure enough, in a corner, he found the common-looking Eternal Night demon mushroom. This sort of poison was extremely toxic and was an extremely rare supplementary material that could only be used in rare pills. Moreover, it could be replaced with other medicinal materials, and now it was sitting there all alone. Even a vengeful cultivator that wanted to pull others into the abyss of failure wouldn't think of exchanging for it. Eternal Night demon mushroom. Exchange price, 1 point. Remaining quantity, 7. In Chinyu's eyes, this sort of coincidence was clearly some sort of will of the heavens. He had an intense premonition that he could refine the demon puppet pill, and it would be a very different demon puppet pill. There was no need to say anything else. Order. Schwa. His points cleared to 0. A prompt indicated that Chinyu had obtained 7 complete Eternal Night demon mushrooms. He turned and left. He had to hurry and obtain them. Chinyu didn't know that his conversation with the official cultivator, as well as his performance afterwards, had been completely recorded by a button-shaped camera. Chapter 325. The fish-catching app was a very famous live broadcast software within the South Shine Nation. It had a massive user base. At this time, in a certain live broadcast room of the fish-catching app, the topic was organized by the South Shine Nation's officials, Young Alchemist Competition First Live. 3 days of live broadcasts left countless viewers cheering out loud. In particular, the proud children of heaven who left everyone else in the dust in refining pills attracted a massive number of fans and were praised by countless cultivators. I love Zhao Jiuqian. Black Bebe is the most handsome. White Fengfo will marry no one, but you. All sorts of nicknames sprang up like bamboo shoots after spring rain, filling the entire screen. At the same time, there was also a crazy rain of gifts. The audience thanked the 2 hosts for bringing them such a wonderful live broadcast. But at this time, the live broadcast room was strangely quiet. There were no live comments on the screen. Countless people in the audience watched as a participating cultivator questioned the South Shine Nation officials as to why he had fewer points. Everything was normal at first. Many people were even mocking this dark-skinned young cultivator. It was already the 3rd day, and he had only finished refining pills. Even if he was compensated with points, he would still lose the 4th stage without a doubt. This was because screenshots of the pharmaceutical material warehouse village had circulated on the network not long after the exchange began, and they were constantly updated as time passed. The call ended. Just as everyone thought that this mediocre young cultivator who was doomed to fail would receive the compensation he deserved and that things would end here, an accident occurred. The official coldly refused his request. He said that the appraisal committee had determined that his points would be deducted. Starting from today, there will be. The official's cold voice fell into everyone's ears, grating to the ears. At this time, many cultivators were already enraged. This incompetent official was a bully who only knew how to bully the weak. Some people already began to sympathize with this dark-skinned youth who was filled with anger but also helpless to do anything. Then the climax occurred. With this level of skill, you still have the face to ask for points? You might as well exchange for an eternal night demon mushroom and eat it. The official left in a carefree manner. But he didn't know how much damage his words would cause to a young man who wanted to strive for a brighter future. As expected, the youth was stunned. He stood where he was, as if he didn't want to believe that he would receive such humiliation. He closed his eyes. He should be trying his best not to cry, right? The live broadcast room exploded. In an instant, everyone was venting the anger in their hearts. Bullsh asterisk T official cultivator. Dog shit, he deserves to eat dog shit. These bastards who sit in their positions without doing anything. Every year, they take the taxpayers' money and put themselves in a superior position. Poor little brother, what did he do wrong? To be able to refine a fourth-grade pill at such a young age, he could already be considered an extremely outstanding young man. Such an outstanding young man might be completely ruined after today. We must expose this matter and let more people see how the government, who keeps saying that the interests of the people are the most important, treats us. The number of people in the live stream room began to skyrocket at an astonishing speed. Soon, it attracted the attention of the official fish catching app. If this matter is not handled well, it will definitely cause a huge mess. The manager hurriedly reported to his superior. Then, he received a result that made him extremely excited. Sure enough, our fish-catching AP has a deep background, and we're not afraid of things getting out of hand. Quick, give us a special topic and put it on the homepage. Hype this matter up in the shortest time possible. After the manager gave the order, the number of viewers in the live broadcast room increased to an extremely exaggerated level. And at this time, the live broadcast reached its climax. Chinyu opened his eyes and took out his handphone. The light in his eyes fell into the eyes of the audience, becoming a certain decisiveness. Little brother, what is he doing? 9527, don't be impulsive. Holy shit, he couldn't have exchange for the eternal night demon mushrooms, right? Then someone in the live broadcast room said, hurry and look at the screenshot of the herb storeroom that was just posted. Walala. At this time, countless cultivators followed the prompts and found a picture that had just been posted on the Weibo. The picture showed that the eternal night demon mushroom had turned gray. The accompanying text was as follows. I am a participating cultivator. After inadvertently watching the live broadcast, I immediately pulled up the herb storeroom and watched with my own eyes as the eternal night demon mushrooms were exchanged for. There were exactly 7 of them. I have reason to believe that this little brother, 9527, did all of this. I have no idea why he exchanged for the eternal night demon mushrooms, but I hope that there won't be a tragedy. Finally, I am confused. Could this be the competition that I have been preparing for several years? Could it be that my family has always told me that I must do my best and obtain a good result? At this time, I suddenly have an impulse to withdraw. If something happens to little brother 9527, I will withdraw from the competition and post this as proof. Whoosh! This time, it really caused a huge uproar. Countless cultivators were enraged. In their opinion, the officials were trying to force an originally outstanding young man to his death. This sort of behavior that treated human life as grass absolutely could not be allowed. In the live broadcast room, the audience roared out, telling the streamer to hurry and stop little brother 9527. Unfortunately, by the time the streamer reacted, he had already disappeared without a trace. Time is life. Save little brother 9527. This topic instantly blew up the network. Then, in the shortest period of time, it became the hottest topic on Weibo, Postbar, and all the major forums. As the netizens were enthusiastically discussing how to save little brother 9527, other comments began to quietly appear. For instance, during the wilderness trial, there were a massive number of monster beast corpses that appeared. Screenshots of these were posted online, causing many cultivators to break out in a cold sweat. For instance, during the Pill Furnace election at the Pill Furnace Pagoda, there were countless participating cultivators that fell to the ground and howled in pain. In particular, there was that extremely unlucky fellow whose divine sense had been blown up by the Pill Furnace. There were even more clearly posted pictures of his family's grief-stricken expressions. For instance, after the pill refining ended, there was an incomparably old cultivator that had exchanged for all the crepe myrtle grass. In the picture, the pain and despair in his eyes caused everyone to shed tears. In the comments section, countless sharp rumors appeared. The Southshine Nation was hosting a competition, and the undercurrents were surging. The Southshine Nation officials had always placed a great deal of importance on propaganda on the internet. Although there was freedom of speech nowadays, news that was clearly harmful to the country's image had to be suppressed. Thus, the matter of saving little brother 9527 was quickly locked onto and then passed on at the fastest possible speed. The official cultivators represented the image of the country. Now, in this live broadcast video, they were so callous and heartless. It was hard to accept. Moreover, this matter involved the Southshine Nation's Grand Alchemy event that was held once every 30 years. No one had truly calculated how much profit a competition would bring, but there was no doubt that would be a terrifying amount. Thus, the officials spared no effort in maintaining this event. Now that the internet was abuzz with discussions regarding the competition, they had to immediately deal with this matter. Once the apparatus of the country was activated, the strength that erupted could be called terrifying. Over a dozen large internet companies announced that they would temporarily suspend their services and update them. At the same time, the Southshine Nation officials released several eye-catching news in order to divert attention. But this was only a stopgap measure. If this matter couldn't be resolved, the flames in the hearts of countless netizens would sooner or later erupt. When Yunilan obtained this news, he was sitting down with Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangang, discussing the Tao. The three of them belonged to different camps, but they were all Blue Sea Supreme Elders. Even though the two of them had a tense relationship, they didn't mind temporarily sitting down and comparing their cultivations. In Yunilan's opinion, the matter that blew up the internet couldn't compare to him discussing the Great Tao with two others at the same level. He casually ordered his subordinates to handle it. Yunilan had the strength to remain calm, even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. But the various officials that were managing the competition didn't have his confidence. If the reputation of the competition were to be damaged because of this, they didn't doubt that they would be severely punished. Soon, the official in the video was found. By now, he knew that he had become famous on the internet. His face was pale, and he didn't dare to hide anything. Like pouring beans out of a bamboo tube, he spilled everything he knew. Finally, the matter fell onto Lord Hulanhihi's shoulders. When his cultivation was interrupted, he had a look of annoyance on his face. But after he learned what had happened, his complexion darkened. That's right, I was the one who ordered this. Hulanhihi came from the royal family, and his status was extraordinary. Even if his status was higher than his, he still couldn't speak too harshly. A Southshine Nation high official helplessly said, "Lord Huluan, with your status, why lower yourself to the level of this junior? So what if you give him 10 points? Once he enters the 4th stage, he will naturally be eliminated." Saying these things is useless. We should hurry and find this person. If he really decides to commit suicide, things will become troublesome. Another high official said. Huluanhihi took a deep breath. Everyone, rest assured that this matter was caused by me. If there really is a crime, I will take responsibility for it. He paused for a moment, his eyes flashing. But I believe that this junior absolutely won't commit suicide. His eyes brightened. He felt that he had grasped some sort of truth. As he thought, this bastard junior wasn't purely playing to the gallery. He was doing this on purpose. Now, as long as he checked it, he would know whether or not his guess was correct. Huluanhihi stood up. I've already ordered people to look for him. There will soon be results. At this time, someone came in to report that they had found him. Walala, a large group of officials hurried out. During the break in the competition, the outside world wasn't isolated. Thus, everyone was able to find out what happened through their handphones. At this time, as they saw a large number of high-level officials appear with dignified expressions, they could roughly guess the reason. This was a rare sight to see. There was no need to encourage them at all. Countless people followed suit. Chapter 326. Soon, he arrived in front of a wooden house. An official knocked on his door. When Chinyu opened it, his heart shook. His first thought was that the little blue lamp had been exposed. But then he remembered that he hadn't used it since the start of the competition. What was going on? Hulu and Hehe's eyes flashed with understanding. He lightly said, "Ning Qin, when you asked about the points before, it was indeed the fault of a civil servant. But giving you 7 points was something I personally agreed to. This is because with your alchemy skills, the most you can obtain is 7 points." He waved his hand, and that incomparably unlucky official appeared with a look of shame. He expressed his sincere apologies to Chinyu. Of course, deep down in his heart, he was itching to kill someone. This matter was just a minor detail, so there was no need to pay attention to it. "Ning Qin, I am Hulu and He. I am responsible for all matters related to this competition. Do you have any objections regarding this matter? If there is, then bring it up now, and this official will explain it to you." Hulu and Hehe's voice was calm, but his eyes were cold. Chinyu was stunned. He simply couldn't figure out what was going on. After obtaining the 7 Eternal Night demon mushrooms, he had been pondering over how to refine the demon puppet pill. He didn't know anything about what was happening on the network. However, when Hulu and Hehe saw that blank expression, he let out a cold snort from the bottom of his heart. He was even more certain that his guess was correct. This Ning Qin really knows how to put on an act. He's really good at playing innocent. But even if you're a best actor under my eyes of fire and gold, you can forget about escaping. Ning Qin, if you have no objections, then this matter will come to an end here. Hulu and Hehe turned around and was about to leave when he casually asked, "What do you want to do by exchanging for the Eternal Night demon mushroom?" Chinyu cupped his hands together. "Reporting to Sir, it is to refine pills in the 4th stage." A cold smile flashed in Hulu and Hehe's eyes. He nodded and left with his people. Chinyu was baffled, but he still felt that something wasn't right. But under the watchful eyes of so many people, this wasn't a good time to think. He closed the door, isolating himself from the eyes of the outside world. But before he could take 2 steps, he suddenly froze in place. Ning Qin. Hulu and Hehe was calling him by his alias when he registered. This bastard. Chinyu finally understood where his malice lay. In the crowd, countless cultivators who were paying attention let out sighs of relief, but at the same time, they were somewhat confused. What kind of pill could the Eternal Night demon mushroom be refined into? Fortunately, this matter was just a misunderstanding. It seemed to have been resolved now. But suddenly, a cultivator shouted out, "Just now Lord Hu and Hehe seemed to have called him Ning Qin, right?" "Yes, that's the name." Beside him, a cultivator with a calm expression appeared on his face. Thus, the surroundings suddenly quietened down. Then, everyone subconsciously widened their eyes. Ning Qin. Ning Qin, several months ago, during today's weather discussion program, a divine blood pill had been appraised. This had caused the inn's reputation to soar. Among them, the most brilliant character, besides the mysterious Grandmaster 19 that no one had the fortune to meet, was that little brother Ning Qin who had personally tested the pill and turned the tide. The South Shine Nation had tens of millions of territories. It was far too common for people to have the same name and surname. But everyone here had an intuition in their hearts. It's him, it's him. Although the 2 live broadcast hosts weren't able to broadcast live, their professional instincts caused them to keep the recording function on. At this time, the 2 of them revealed looks of excitement. Once the live broadcast restarted and they uploaded this video, it would surely set off another great uproar. They had even thought of the title, In-Depth Competition, Exclusive Unveiling of Little Brother Ning Qin's True Appearance. A massive wave of fans and rewards was rushing over. Hulu and Hehe sat down. He swept his eyes around. "All of you withdraw. Without my order, No one is allowed to enter. Yes, my lord. The followers bowed and withdrew. The remaining high-level officials all revealed puzzled expressions. Hulu and Hee clapped his hands. In the corner of the shadows, a cultivator walked out. His entire body was covered in black robes, and it was hard to see his figure. My lord, the things you wanted are all here. It was a hoarse voice. It wasn't even possible to distinguish the gender of the person. The high-level officials all revealed looks of shock. Dark Knight Division. The South Shy Nation's royal family controlled a secret organization that was responsible for monitoring the world and guarding the royal family members. Yet, they had actually sent someone from the Dark Knight Division. It was clear that this matter was no trifling matter. Hulu and Hee nodded. Show it to my lords. The Dark Knight Division cultivator nodded. Magic power surged in his palm and poured into a jade slip. Immediately, a screen of light was projected in midair, clearly displaying images. Impressively, this was the footage of Qin Yu participating in the competition. All sorts of surveillance footage had been edited together. There was the matter of the pill furnace pagoda, the second and third stages, the handing over of pills. For someone to be able to become a high official, let alone their cultivation, just their shrewdness and methods were bound to be extraordinary. Otherwise, they would have long since been swallowed up by others without any bones remaining. How could they have calmly sat here? Although these images could not prove anything, they were still able to tell that there was something strange about them. For instance, Qin Yu was always the last to hand over pills, and the quality of the pills just barely met the requirements. If someone said there wasn't something fishy going on, they naturally wouldn't believe it. Hulu and Hee flicked his sleeves, and several jade slips flew out, falling in front of everyone. This is the Dark Knight Division's emergency investigation of Ning Qin's background. This person's background is incomparably clean, and there is nothing suspicious about it. But the greatest point of suspicion is that it is far too clean. Below, the various high officials of the South Shy Nation carefully looked through the jade slips. From childhood onwards, every stage of their life was clearly recorded, including their identities and resumes. His birthplace was a mountain stronghold in the land of flowing fire. Before he was 15 years old, he lived here. Afterwards, because an earth dragon overturned him, he was forced to leave his homeland and enter a small city deep within the southern Overwatch Pass. There, he entered the local Sioux family as an apprentice and officially stepped onto the path of cultivation until he joined the inn. Everything was very clear, but the things recorded inside were impossible to verify. This was because 30 years ago, the land of flowing fire had been completely dragged underground because of a great calamity, sinking into magma and turning to ashes. The number of people that survived in the entire mountain stronghold could be counted on two hands. After all these years, no one knew where they went. Even if they could be found, it was normal that they didn't know who Ning Qin was. Afterwards, Ning Qin lived in a small city for 10 years. It was originally a beautiful tourist attraction, but because a 7-colored peacock that was raised in captivity suddenly went insane and fell into the demonic path, transforming into a heaven-swallowing rock that swallowed the heavens and earth, razing the entire city to the ground. Everything that happened in the past was erased, so it was naturally impossible to find any concrete evidence. After that, most of the experiences were like this. It was impossible to verify Ning Qin's identity. The high officials frowned. They retracted their divine senses and looked over. Hulu and Hee had a solemn expression. He said, I suspect that Ning Qin is a spy sent by another country into my South Shy Nation to destroy the order of my nation. Several months ago, this was the case during the struggle between the Inn and Philosophy Watch, and now that he is participating in the grand competition, it is even more so. Ning Qin's current actions are indeed a bit strange. But when he turned the tide and protected the Inn's reputation, there doesn't seem to be anything to doubt. I believe that the reason why the matter between Philosophy Watch and the Inn was stirred up so much was because someone was secretly fanning the flames. As for Ning Qin, he should have helped the Inn in order to obtain enough status to carry out an even greater plot. Although they felt that this deduction was a bit forced, As they thought about Ning Qin's clean and outrageous background, as well as his actions in the grand competition, the high officials slowly nodded, agreeing with his judgment. After all, they were well aware of how much the royal family valued the grand competition. If they were really aiming for the grand competition, then no matter how cautious they were, it wouldn't be too much. Moreover, the one who proposed this was Huluan He. Perhaps this was the will of the entire royal family, so they naturally wouldn't speak out against it. I wonder what Lord Huluan plans on doing? Huluan He's eyes shined. Right now, Ning Qin has already become an extremely famous figure on the internet. If we rashly arrest him, it will inevitably draw criticism. At this time, there might even be people with ulterior motives who accuse us of abusing our power for personal gain. This Ning Qin must have already planned this. He expected that there would be a day when he would be suspected, so he put on a layer of protection for himself. Humph, but in front of me, all of these preparations are nothing more than wishful thinking. If we want to move against him, we don't need to. We can do it ourselves. Lord Huluan, what do you mean? Huluan He's voice was light. His words revealed a strong confidence that everything was under his control. This Ning Qin, in order to obtain a layer of protection and the In's trust, he also offended many people, with Philosophy Watch being the main one. I have already investigated. This time, Philosophy Watch has sent a great number of cultivators to participate in the competition. Their actions are strange. Even though they were eliminated, they still stayed here and didn't leave. The eyes of the several high officials brightened, and they all revealed looks of praise. They had already guessed Huluan He's method. This method of killing with a borrowed knife wasn't bad at all. In fact, they didn't even need to kill anyone. As long as Ning Qin came into conflict with others, they would have an excuse to intervene. Once Ning Qin fell into their hands, it would naturally depend on their intentions. Huluan He coldly smiled. Recently, there's been a great deal of negative news about the competition. We can release some interesting news to attract everyone's attention and divert their attention. I wonder if any of you have any objections to my arrangements? Lord Huluan is wise. Everything will be as you say. The several high officials smiled and nodded. Thus, a short hour later, someone suddenly posted a video on the South Shine Nation's largest gossiping, help, and help forum. The content of the video included the appraisal of the Divine Blood Pill, as well as the current South Shine Nation's youth alchemy competition, as well as clips of Qin Yu's participation. Then, in the name of Ning Qin's fan, the person who uploaded the video happily told everyone that the black-robed little brother they had been looking for had finally appeared. There was a long string of excited words, but at the end, there was a trace of confusion. This fan seemed to have great confidence in Ning Qin's alchemy skills. This meant that there was definitely something shady about his current results. Otherwise, the South Shine Nation officials wouldn't have suppressed Ning Qin at first and only reluctantly appeared to apologize after the saving little brother 9,527 incident occurred. This was where Huluan He's brilliance lay. He was pouring dirty water on himself and using the aftermath of the incident that hadn't yet dispersed. After all, this sort of headline was the best at attracting attention. And indeed, after the video was uploaded, it fermented for a short period of time before it spiraled out of control. Chapter 327. Following that, more and more people revealed information. For instance, there were high-resolution pictures of the pills that Ning Qin had handed over during the second and third stages. When appraising the Divine Blood Pill, Big Brother Ning Qin's performance was so calm that everyone thought he was some amazing alchemist. But now it seems that his level is about the same. Haha, I sympathize with the South Shine Nation competition officials. I've already looked over them. The quality of the pills that Ning Qin handed over is really bad. It's more than bad. I asked my teacher, and he said that the 2 pills were barely enough to meet the promotion requirements. Giving him 7 points is reasonable. Humph. What I love is Big Brother Ning Qin's character. So what if his alchemy skills are poor? But why did Big Brother Ning Qin exchange for the Eternal Night Demon Mushroom? Could this sort of highly toxic thing really be used to refine pills? Let me explain to the person above. The eternal night demon mushroom can be used to refine the demon puppet pill. It is between the 4th and 5th grade, depending on the specific quality of the pill. However, refining the demon puppet pill isn't simple at all. Humph humph, the demon puppet pill can only be refined by a grandmaster level character. I'll bet a spirit stone that Ning Qin can't refine the demon puppet pill. Don't look down on my Ning Qin too much. Although the pills he refined are barely up to standard, and there's only one of them. Do you know what sort of pill furnace he used? Below is a clear picture of the pill furnace. This picture was clearly enlarged and then cut out. Although it was a bit blurry, one could still clearly see the fierce cracks on the surface of the pill furnace. I'm drunk. I heard that in the competition, a pill furnace with 5 or more cracks is considered a low-grade pill furnace. This is absolutely a low-grade pill furnace. It is the worst of the worst, the worst of the worst. I feel sorry for my Ning Qin. He can actually refine pills with this or a pill furnace. Those who slander my big brother Ning, open your eyes wide and see if you can use this pill furnace to complete the alchemy test. Huluan He swiped his tablet, his eyes sweeping over the shocked and worshipful comments. All of them were cold and indifferent. Ning Qin, don't you want to become famous? Then let me help you and let you become famous on the internet once more. Philosophy Watch. On the bed, Elder Nangong's breathing quickened. He stubbornly stared at the screen, at the dark-skinned face. If the hatred in his eyes could kill, then even through the phone he feared he could tear Chinyu to shreds. Trash. A bunch of trash. If it weren't for the competition authorities revealing his identity, you wouldn't have been able to find him. In the room, there was only the sound of panting. The faces of the cultivators below were pale and filled with fear. Pass down the order. Have them attack and kill Ning Qin. A Philosophy Watch cultivator hesitated. Elder, if we do this, won't we anger the officials? Elder Nangong sneered. Idiots, do you think that without the government's approval, these rumors will appear on the internet? I don't know what the exact reason is, but there is something you should all remember. The authorities also don't have the least bit of a favorable impression towards Ning Qin. Everyone came to a sudden realization, and a cold light flashed in their eyes. Since that was the case, they didn't need to have any more misgivings. The next day, Chinyu pushed open the door. He furrowed his eyebrows for a moment before composing himself. As he thought, there were people secretly watching him. Fortunately, he had already expected this. Without the slightest pause, he walked out with large strides. The 4th stage of the competition would begin today. There would be 3 winners, and then they would compete for the final ranking. Chinyu was expressionless, but his eyes were vigilant. He swept his eyes around the surrounding corners. He knew that once Ning Qin's identity was revealed, there would be many people gnashing their teeth in hatred. In particular, after the South Shine Nation officials had clearly expressed their malice towards him, he feared that these people would act even more recklessly. Chinyu didn't know what these hidden enemies would do, but there was one thing he was sure of. Since the competition had progressed to this point, he had to obtain first place. Who cares about the inn? With their level, they don't think they can compete with us. Once the competition ends and my name spreads far and wide, I will definitely give them a show of strength. That's right, a mere inn with less than 100 years of background cannot compare with my Philosophy Watch. Sooner or later, they will be thoroughly eradicated. Everyone, let's work hard and work together. The day when the inn is overthrown will not be too far away. A strange expression crossed Chinyu's face. You can say whatever you want, curse whatever you want, but why are you looking at me sideways? Could it be that they were hoping that I would be so angry that I would argue with them? In order to deal with him, the people from Philosophy Watch had thought of such a method? Or was there some trap here that he didn't know about? Chinyu thought for a moment. Then, he took out his handphone and turned on the recording function. His expression didn't change as he strode forwards. As he got closer and closer to the several people, he finally brushed past them. The Philosophy Watch cultivators tensed up. Excitement flashed in the depths of their eyes, and their complexions changed, stiffening. Leave. How could you leave like this? Don't you have the deepest love for the inn? In the past, in order to restore the inn's reputation, You didn't even care about your life. How could you possibly tolerate us cursing and questioning you like this? At this time, shouldn't you be angry and rush up to us to argue with us? At the very least, you should taunt us a few times and show us your true colors. If you leave like this, what will happen to our next plan? Director, this script isn't right. In truth, there were many smart people here. When Ningqi's identity was completely exposed on the internet overnight, many cultivators guessed that he was about to suffer a stroke of bad luck. Because of the 9,527 incident yesterday, most people knew where Qinyu lived. Thus, many people came early in the morning to watch the fun. As for the Philosophy Watch cultivators, they lived up to their expectations and appeared at a place that everyone had to pass to reach the Marshall Field. This caused them to gradually grow excited. They stared with wide eyes, waiting for Mars and Earth to collide. Of course, I won't explain how the cultivators from the land of divinity and demons knew about Mars and Earth. Don't ask, it's useless to ask. Back to the main topic. When Qinyu appeared, the cultivators that had been waiting for a long time felt their heartbeats speed up and their eyes shine. But what did they see next? Ningqi passed by them. He actually passed by them, not responding to Philosophy Watch's provocation at all. At this moment, they were all stunned. Philosophy Watch's methods were very low level, but they were carefully prepared. They had calculated Ningqi's desire to protect the inn and could be called an unfathomable plot. After all, they had grasped Ningqi's weakness. But looking at it now, it was useless. In the corner, a thin man with a goatee and a haughty expression was twisting his beard, as if everything were under his control. At this time, his complexion paled. His fingers subconsciously tightened, and he tore off a bit of his beard, causing his entire face to twist in pain. Damn it, that bastard Ningqi. He actually didn't fall for their trap. It seemed they had underestimated him. Since the soft approach didn't work, they could only use the hard approach. With a sneer, the goatee lifted his hand and waved it forwards. Several strands of his beard fluttered in the wind, giving him a bit of a free and easy temperament. Ningqi. In the crowd of onlookers, a cultivator shouted out, "In the past, you ruined my family's little sister's reputation. Today, I've finally found you. Hand over your life." Bang! The ground shook and shattered. This person was like a tiger descending a mountain, bolting forwards. The onlookers were stunned for a moment before they secretly sighed in admiration. Philosophy Watch truly hated Qinyu to the bone. They had actually used such a method to drag him down with them. But this reason was a bit too far-fetched. What did they mean by ruining your little sister's reputation? Bah! Why didn't they take a good look at their faces? Ningqi must be blind to have dared to touch your little sister. Everyone knew that the Southshine Nation's competition officials strictly forbade any participating cultivators from fighting in private. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. If this person attacked, it was unknown whether or not he could kill Ningqi. But as long as the two of them fought, they could drag Ningqi down with them. At the very least, it would ruin his goal of participating in the competition. Despicable, but I like it. If it didn't do this, how could things be lively? Of course, there were some female participants that cursed Philosophy Watch for being despicable and worried for their big brother Ningqi. As for the male cultivators, they crossed their arms and sneered. Big brother Ningqi. Fuck, if you're so popular with the opposite sex, it's easy for you to suffer retribution. Qin, you dodged. Who are you? I don't even know you. Ningqi, you've forgotten who I am. But even if I turn to ashes, I will still recognize you. The man's face was filled with so much pain that he wished he were dead. Stop. If you attack again, I'll have to defend myself. Don't run. I'm going to kill you. Qinyu retreated several times. Then his eyes flashed. He took out a pill furnace and said in a low voice, "If I attack you then, I will be forced to withdraw from the competition. If you want to eat pills in the future, then go find someone else." Qinyu was already aware of the ill intentions of the officials. Although he had a recording, it didn't necessarily mean it was safe. The best method was to not attack. Although the pill furnace in his hand looked miserable, Qinyu knew that this was absolutely an illusion. On the pill furnace pagoda's 9th level, That wild bull galloping and that soul-stirring dun was still fresh in his mind. It didn't choose anyone and only chose him. In addition to these days of interaction, Qin, you believe that the pill furnace must have its own reasons. If so, then in today's situation, it might attack. Bang! With a loud humming sound, the pill furnace flew up on its own. In the blink of an eye, it expanded to over 10 feet in size. Although the cracks became increasingly miserable and the gap was so large that it left one's heart shaking, everyone was shocked by the horrifying aura it emitted. The chasing Zhang Mao was in the middle of a fierce battle. He rushed forwards with all his strength and simply couldn't stop himself. He could only stare helplessly on as a shadow fell down from above him. Then, bang, the earth shook and a deep pit appeared. The pill furnace stood within, its slaughter energy billowing out. The Zhang Mao's waist was exposed, his face pale and bloodless. He let out a shrill scream. Although he didn't know how badly injured he was, just looking at him left a cold chill running down one's spine. Cough, cough, he was crippled. This fellow was absolutely crippled. The space suddenly fell silent. The Zhang Mao screams became increasingly ear-piercing. More and more eyes fell on Qin Yu, revealing fear in their eyes. Just now, he had been constantly dodging, as if he didn't want to make things difficult for him. But in the blink of an eye, his expression had changed, and he had left someone half dead. Chapter 328. Goatee felt his scalp go numb. He never imagined that this bastard Ning Qin would actually dare to be so heavy-handed in front of everyone's eyes. But this was also good. Attacking a participating cultivator had caused him to be seriously injured. Just this alone meant that no one could save him. Compared to that, the price that little Zhang had to pay was nothing. At most, he would just have to make up for it later. A trace of complacency flashed in his eyes, but soon after, grief appeared on his face. He squeezed his eyes and tears flowed down. "My brother, you're really too miserable." Goatee rushed to the side of the cauldron and hugged little Zhang as he cried. He used a bit of force to touch the wound, and Zhang Mao's howls suddenly became even louder. This scene was truly heartbreaking to see and tearful to hear. This is the effect I want. No matter what, I will first stand on the moral high ground, then wait for an opportunity to act. The cultivators of philosophy, watch, all rushed forwards, all of them looking as if they couldn't live under the same sky as old Zhang. But the truth was that this was all bark and no bite. After seeing old Zhang's fate, they didn't want to suffer the same fate. Furthermore, they had already achieved their goal. Whoosh, whoosh, with the sound of something tearing through the air, over 10 official cultivators arrived. They were all dressed in armor, and their eyes were cold. They were the police that the competition officials had arranged. How dare you? You really have some guts. During the competition, you actually dare to kill in public. A high-level police cultivator coldly waved his hand. Take them away. The eyes of the surrounding cultivators immediately turned serious. No matter where it was, the reaction of the police was always extremely slow. Today, the incident had just happened, and a divine soldier descended from the heavens and caught him red-handed. No one would believe that there was nothing fishy going on. For a time, everyone fell silent. Even some female cultivators that supported Qin Yu didn't dare to speak up. Qin Yu took out his phone. "Wait, I have evidence. He was the one who kept attacking me just now. I kept dodging." Unfortunately, there was no chance for the recording to be played. The senior police cultivator sneered. "Is this what you mean by hiding? Boy, you're quite ruthless. What are you waiting for? Capture him." Qin Yu took a step back. "Officer, I'm not the one who did it. Why are you arresting me?" The high-level police cultivator's eyes turned cold. "Do you want to resist law enforcement?" Qin Yu lightly said, "I am only stating the facts." He pointed a finger. "The pill furnace is the official pill furnace. It took the initiative to suppress this person. Am I to be blamed for that? What a nuisance. If it weren't for you, how could a mere pill furnace injure someone?" Qin Yu turned and said, "I have evidence." At this time, many people's eyes widened in shock. What evidence could he possibly have? Could it be that he could have the pill furnace testify for him? However, what happened next caused everyone to subconsciously open their mouths in shock. Pill furnace, tell them. Did you do it yourself? If so, open the lid. Kwong, the lid was opened and closed. In the face of Chin Yu's innocent expression, the senior police officer's mouth opened so wide that he could swallow 10 eggs. At this moment, he was filled with regret. If he knew that this would happen, he would have directly taken him down. Even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't have given Chin Yu the chance to say these words. However, it seemed a little too late to do so now. The goatee man clenched his teeth and began to cry out loud. Officer, this must be Ning Chin's trick. He must have done something. If you capture him and interrogate him, the truth will definitely be revealed. The high-level police cultivator's eyes brightened. The order he received was to capture Ning Chin no matter what. It didn't matter what reason he used. Ning Chin, you are involved in a case of assault. Come with us. 2 police cultivators had already arrived in front of Chin Yu, their complexions grim. Bang! On the ground, the pill furnace suddenly flew up. The unlucky Zhang Mao's eyes rolled back in his head, and he fainted. Then, that blood-stained pill furnace with a threatening slaughter intent hurtled towards the 2 police cultivators. Caught off guard, the 2 police cultivators lifted their hands to defend themselves. But they were sent tumbling away like gourds. How dare you? Ning Chin, you dare to attack a police officer. The high-level police cultivator paled. Chin Yu shook his head. Officer, it was the pill furnace that went crazy. It has nothing to do with me. Since you were so impatient to pin a crime on my head, I can't help but suspect that because of what happened before, you were trying to persecute me. Huluan Hehe nearly blew up his lungs in anger. There was actually such a stupid pig in the police system. This was clearly an incomparably simple matter, but it had actually escalated to such a degree. He couldn't continue like this. Otherwise, who knew what sort of chaos would occur? Capture that pill furnace. With a loud shout, Lord Huluan Hehe appeared. His purple official robes fluttered in the wind, his aura threatening. Whoosh, whoosh, several official masters rushed out. They lifted their hands and formed a net that covered the entire pill furnace, forcefully imprisoning it. Huluan Hehe's eyes flashed like lightning. Ning Chin, you are suspected of controlling the pill furnace and attacking the police cultivators, as well as affecting the competition. Men, capture Chin Yu and detain him for interrogation. Several powerful auras locked onto Chin Yu. Any movement would draw in their all-out attacks. Chin Yu sighed inwardly. As he thought, everything had happened because of this Lord Huluan Hehe. But he really couldn't understand why a high official of the South Shy Nation would target him at every turn. At this time, Chin Yu felt a bit of regret. He hadn't left as soon as he sensed something was wrong. However, he feared that he had already been locked onto by Huluan Hehe. Even if he wanted to leave, he might not have the chance. Luckily, he was detained in public today. The South Shy Nation officials would have to give an explanation for this matter and wouldn't directly embarrass him. He could only take things one step at a time. As for resisting, Chin Yu admitted that he had such a thought, but it only lasted for a moment before he suppressed it. What nonsense! If he resisted now, how is that any different from seeking death? Don't look at how he had a divine soul realm cultivation and wasn't considered weak in the land of divinity and demons. But if he stood on the opposite side of a country, he would be crushed into slag at any moment. Of course, this was because his life wasn't in danger. If he were facing death, Chin Yu might have made a different choice. Seeing Chin Yu surrender, Huluan Hehe's eyes flashed with disappointment. He waved his hand, and 2 subordinates shot towards Chin Yu. At this time, bang, there was a heaven-shaking explosion. The net that trapped the pill furnace was violently blown apart. The 10-foot-high furnace began to grow at an astonishing speed once more. In the blink of an eye, it had reached an astonishing 100 feet. Growing to such a degree, the cracks that covered the furnace body became increasingly fierce. They connected together, making one wonder just how this pill furnace that should have been smashed to pieces was still preserved. In particular, as the pill furnace grew, The aura it emitted also rose to a shocking degree. In that instant, the void seemed to surge like a raging sea. The originally clear skies began to darken at a speed visible to the naked eye. Strong winds rose up, sweeping up the sand and stones on the ground. They blew in all directions, pressing down on the surroundings of the competition field. In the wilderness, countless ancient trees began to bend down. Yun Elon frowned, awakening from his thoughts. His eyes flashed, and he smiled. "Revered Ming, revered Yuan, please wait a moment. I have some minor matters to deal with." He stood up and took a step forward, vanishing from sight. A strange light flashed in Yuan Tiangong's eyes. Such an aura is actually emitted by a pill furnace. How curious. At this time, Ming Siyuan also had a plan in mind. He lightly said, "Then let's go take a look." "Ha, great." Yuan Tiangang teleported away. Ming Siyuan took a deep breath and followed close behind. Huluan Hehe's complexion paled. He never thought that such a scene would occur. Now, he could almost confirm that this pill furnace wasn't activated by Ning Qin. He didn't have the courage, nor did he have the strength. He looked up into the skies, at the broken yet heaven-shaking pill furnace, and his heart shook. Who would have thought that such a broken pill furnace would actually possess such astonishing strength? As he was hesitating about what to do, a figure suddenly appeared in his line of sight. Huluan Hehe hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, exalted Yun. Greetings, exalted Yun." All the official cultivators respectfully bowed. In the surrounding area, countless cultivators lowered their heads, expressing their awe and respect towards this Blue Sea Realm supermaster. Yin Ilan's eyes flashed. He looked at Qinyu. "Little friend Ning Qin, can you have it stop first?" Qinyu hesitated for a moment. He cupped his hands together and bowed. "Exalted Yun, this junior would like to know whether or not I can continue participating in the competition." Yin Ilan was startled. He never thought that this junior would be able to maintain his calm in front of him. A look of appreciation appeared in his eyes. He lightly said, "Of course you can." With his status, there was no reason for him to lie. Qinyu relaxed. "Thank you, exalted Yun." He looked up and said, "It's fine now. You can stop." In the air, the 100-foot pill furnace suddenly restrained its aura. It rapidly shrank and fell into Qinyu's body. But it was unknown if it had consumed too much strength or if there was some other reason. But as the pill furnace flew towards him, it suddenly fell down, nearly smashing into Yun Ilan's head. It brushed past his hair and ruffled his neatly combed hair. Qinyu's heart leapt into his throat. If he really struck it, he had no idea what his fate would be. He would definitely be implicated. Yun Ilan's lips curved up in an imperceptible smile. This pill furnace was warning him. It seemed that it really valued this junior. This was quite strange. He had no idea just what special characteristics this junior had that it could attract him so much. His thoughts raced, and he immediately suppressed them. Yun Ilan lightly said, "Today's matter ends here. Let's continue the competition." He turned and cupped his hands together. "Revered Ming, revered Yuan, how about we continue?" Yuan Tiangang deeply looked at Qinyu and laughed. "All right." Ming Siyuan's eyes were much more restrained, but only those familiar with him could see the solemnity in his expression. As the young master said, that fellow Taoist Bayu had most likely come for the treasure furnace's remnant spirit. Although a person with the qualifications to be a reincarnated deva shouldn't care about a treasure of this level, there might be some other reason. Thus, Ming Siyuan had been secretly searching for that fellow Taoist Bayu. Unfortunately, he hadn't found anything in the past several days until today. Others might not know about this pill furnace, but with his and Yuan Tiangong's status, he naturally knew about the pill furnace that was being raised within the pill furnace pagoda. If Ning Qin was able to awaken it and draw it closer to him and protect it on its own initiative, there was an extremely high chance that he was the fellow Taoist Bayu that he had been searching for. His thoughts raced, but his expression didn't change at all. Ming Siyuan turned and teleported away with the other two. But it was clear that after today's events, Qinyu had entered the field of vision of 3 Blue Sea Realm supermasters with a completely different status and weight. The wind blew away. White Feng Feng was shocked. Stupid cousin, did you see that? That person on the 9th level is actually him. She shook her head again and again, an expression as if she never expected this to happen. Black Bebe's complexion was heavy. Feng Feng, it looks like you'll have another opponent. Although I don't know why this person has been patiently enduring all this time. Since he has the help of the treasure furnace, you absolutely cannot underestimate him in the following matches. In truth, he had also thought of what revered Ming had thought of. But Qin Yu had a completely unfamiliar appearance, so he didn't say anything. After all, they were about to enter a critical match. No matter what, he couldn't distract White Feng Feng. White Feng Feng frowned. She originally thought it would be difficult to defeat Zhao Jiutian, but now this Ning Qin had jumped out from nowhere. The pressure on her was far too great. Zhao Jiutian's complexion was ugly. He coldly snorted and turned to leave. So what if he obtained the treasure furnace from the 9th level? He didn't believe he would lose to him. Chapter 329. With Yunilan's words, this matter had been decided. Lord Huluan Hehe's complexion alternated between blue and white. He glanced at Qin Yu and then flicked his sleeves and left. The security cultivators all awkwardly left. The female cultivators were thinking that their big brother Ning Qin was fierce. As for the male cultivators, they felt sour in their hearts. Just what kind of dog's hit luck did this brat have? The people from Philosophy Watch had become clowns at this time. They had played out a farce, and most of their people had been crippled, but in the end they hadn't lost anything. Now, everyone knew that Exalted Yunilan was interested in Ning Qin. Even if Philosophy Watch had 100 times more courage, they still wouldn't dare to make any moves in the future. The goateed man's lips moved several times, but he couldn't squeeze out a smile. Together with the several Philosophy Watch cultivators, he was about to cry. But at this time, Qin Yu didn't feel any joy or pride in his heart. Rather, he was completely silent. He was well aware that if it weren't for the sudden change in the pill furnace, Yin Elan wouldn't have interfered. If so, his fate today wouldn't have been too good. Looking at it from another angle, Yin Elan had appeared without warning. It seemed as if he had protected Qin Yu from today's disaster. But with his status, it was impossible for him to act without reason. What was it for? Qin Yu felt that the greatest possibility was this pill furnace in his hands that liked to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger, a pill furnace of extremely low character. Originally, he only hoped to obtain first place in the competition and help the fleeting flame cauldron obtain the treasure cauldron's remnant spirit before leaving. But how did things start to go out of control? Huluan Hehe's hostility was one thing, but Yunilan's attention was the true weight of Mount Tai. He sighed inwardly and suppressed these thoughts. Under the gazes of countless people, he arrived at the martial field of the 4th stage. The venue was still the same as before, but the low wooden huts had been completely demolished and replaced with earth attribute spells. Wide yellow stone huts had been built. The official announced the rules. The 4th round will determine the final rankings. In other words, everyone here has already entered the finals. These words caused many of the participating cultivators to reveal looks of excitement. Actually, before the competition started, they were very clear that they didn't have the qualifications to compete for the final ranking with their strength, and they were already satisfied to be able to step into the finals. By relying on their status as finalists of the South Shine Nation's official tournament, their future road of cultivation would be much easier. After all, the tens of thousands of cultivators that were participating in the competition practically covered all the experts of the younger generation. So those that were able to become eminent and fight their way into the 4th round would absolutely be praised as young geniuses. For this round of alchemy, you will need to use the materials you exchange for in the 3rd stage to refine. You will be ranked according to the grade and effect of the alchemy pills. Today's competition will last for a total of 3 days. This official wishes everyone a successful refinement. The match began. Qin Yu followed the sign and smoothly found his stone house. He pushed open the door and entered. As usual, he carefully scanned the place with his divine sense. When he didn't find anything wrong, he took out a ray disc and set up an array formation in the stone house. The demon puppet pill was an extremely unpopular pill. This was the first time Qin Yu had come into contact with it, and he didn't have any experience in refining it. But in his heart, he had some confidence he could succeed. This pill required the eternal night demon mushroom to suck in blood, and then refine all three into one. After inquiring about the demon puppet pill, Qin Yu knew that the quality of one's blood greatly affected the chances of successfully refining the pill. He had formed the demon body and also obtained Ningling's demonic blood. This was greatly beneficial to refining the demon puppet pill. Secondly, it was because of the pill furnace in front of him. Although he didn't know where it came from, since it was able to alarm Yunalon, he knew it was no trifling matter. In addition, he had used it to refine pills dozens of times before without a single failure. Qin Yu recognized the pill furnace's abilities. He laid down the pill furnace and took out 7 eternal night demon mushrooms. Qin Yu wasn't in a hurry to refine them. His eyebrows furrowed together and his eyes flashed. It was unknown what he was thinking. After several breaths of time, Qin Yu took a deep breath. He said in a low voice, "Pill furnace, I know you can understand my words, so I'll get straight to the point. You must have your reasons for choosing me out of everyone here. I admit that I have my own secrets, but I cannot trust you. So, unless you can give me a sufficient guarantee, I am willing to lose today's competition rather than refine pills." The little blue lamp was too important matter. He absolutely couldn't allow the slightest risk of being exposed. Otherwise, with Qin Yu's current cultivation, he would be torn to pieces at any moment. Although these words contained an element of threat towards the pill furnace, if the pill furnace pretended to be crazy, Qin Yu would treat it as the truth. After a moment of silence, the pill furnace suddenly shook. With a faint hum, faint traces of light seeped out from the furnace, condensing into a sphere of light in the air. One could see countless tiny characters tumbling within this sphere of light. Unfortunately, these characters were extremely strange. Even if one could clearly see them, they still wouldn't know what they meant. Kacha, with a light sound, a new crack appeared on the surface of the pill furnace. Although it was small, and it didn't seem too remarkable when it was covered in wounds, it still caused Qin Yu's heart to skip a beat. His intuition told him that in order to create this sphere of light, the pill furnace had paid a considerable price. Moreover, he didn't feel any threat from this pill furnace. After a moment of hesitation, Qin Yu lifted his hand and probed the sphere of light. In the next moment, countless pieces of information were branded into Qin Yu's mind, allowing him to understand that this sphere of light was an extremely ancient contract that had been signed the moment he touched it. This contract didn't have any strict requirements. It was just that the signing party absolutely couldn't have the slightest intention of harming the other party. Otherwise, they would trigger a backlash from the contract and die without a doubt. The sphere of light had already vanished. Through the contract, Qin Yu could faintly feel the boundless aura coming from the pill furnace. However, this aura was fragmented and only barely managed to gather together. He was able to mobilize less than 1% of its strength. Even this 1% was able to display such might. In the future, if the pill furnace could be restored to its original state, then it would be unimaginable. Qin Yu suppressed the shaking in his heart. He cupped his hands together and said, "Since Brother Pill Furnace has expressed your sincerity, I naturally won't speak any further. The first place of this competition will inevitably belong to you and me. Of course, the premise of this is that Brother Pill Furnace is generous enough not to eat the demon puppet pill. After all, both you and I only have one set of materials today." Flames ignited on their own, guiding heaven and earth's spiritual strength to pour in. The mouth of the furnace opened, clearly tacitly agreeing to this. Qin Yu faintly smiled. He took out the first eternal night demon mushroom and tossed it into the pill furnace with a flick of his sleeves. To use the eternal night demon mushroom to drink blood, it naturally wasn't as simple as pouring the blood over it. Rather, it needed to be refined in the pill furnace to remove all the impurities on the surface of the eternal night demon mushroom. only retaining the pure medicinal efficacy before fusing it with the blood. Everything went smoothly. The eternal night demon mushroom in the pill furnace soon turned into a pitch-black pure liquid. Qin Yu flicked his finger, and a crack appeared on his fingertip. Several drops of blood flew out and were sucked into the pill furnace. His face paled a little, but after several breaths of time, this paleness rapidly faded and his complexion became rosy once more. In refining the demon puppet pill, the quality of one's blood was extremely important. Although he had the little blue lamp in hand, the land of divinity and demons was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Qin Yu had to be careful. Thus, what he used now was his own blood essence. Every drop was incomparably precious, and only those who cultivated the demon body wouldn't care about losing a portion of their blood essence. If it were any other alchemist, they would never dare to do this. Of course, refining the demon body was one aspect, but the more important reason was that he had many pills in his hands. Otherwise, if he relied on his mortal body to recover on its own, it would take him several months or even longer to recover his blood essence. He continued to refine. The 3 eternal night demon mushrooms were soon full of blood. They floated in front of Qin Yu, their mottled black and red colors emitting a strange and eerie atmosphere. Qin Yu wasn't in a hurry to refine them. He closed his eyes and meditated for 4 hours, replenishing himself with a massive number of pills. Once his condition was restored, he slowly opened his eyes. A sharp light flashed. He lifted a hand and touched the pill furnace. The 3 eternal night demon mushrooms flew in, and the flames within the pill furnace instantly rose, drawing in heaven and earth spiritual strength. There was even the sound of crashing waves. Qin Yu's complexion was dignified. He constantly formed law formulas with his hands. The temperature within the pill furnace began to rise at an astonishing speed. Beneath the pressure of an absolutely high temperature, because the 3 eternal night demon mushrooms contained the same source of blood essence, they began to fuse together at a slow speed. The pill furnace in front of Zhao Jiuqian had turned crimson because of the high temperature within. Surging heat flowed out, causing his face to flush red. He lifted a hand and grasped a pitch-black lotus leaf with runes that resembled the face of a demon. Zhao Jiuqian exerted strength in his palm and directly shattered it. This lotus leaf emitted the shrill howls of evil spirits. As the powder was swallowed up by the pill furnace, the already crimson pill furnace became even redder like magma. Zhao Jiuqian's eyes revealed a trace of hesitation. He clenched his teeth and pressed his hand against the crimson pill furnace. Zila la, with the sound of flesh and blood, Zhao Jiuqian's complexion instantly paled. Because of the pain, his body constantly shivered. Sweat drenched his long robe and dripped onto the ground from the corner of his robe. The flesh and blood on Zhao Jiuqian's palm rapidly melted away, revealing pale white bones. As for the blood and flesh that melted away, it was instantly absorbed by the pill furnace. Child and Mother Inyang pill, open for me. Bang! The pill furnace opened. 2 pills, one large and one small, slowly flew out. Their surfaces were dyed red with blood, and the image of a demon face appeared. Zhao Jiuqian flicked his sleeves and received the 2 pills. His pale face lit up with excitement. Medium grade. It's actually medium grade. As he thought, this blood-feeding method could forcefully increase the grade of a pill. However, this wasn't the end. Although a medium-grade child and Mother Inyang pill was rare, it was still a bit lacking if he wanted to take first place. Zhao Jiuqian carefully placed the pills into the extinguished pill furnace. Then, he turned his hand and took out a block of ice. This was a real block of ice. After it appeared, it emitted a terrifyingly low temperature. A layer of white frost rapidly formed on Zhao Jiuqian's eyebrows. But what was most shocking was that within this terrifying block of ice, there was actually a mass of fire sealed away. Although it was in a sealed state, it still gently pulsed as it calmly burned. Zhao Jiuqian's complexion was incomparably dignified. He lifted a hand and touched the block of ice. With a light cracking sound, tiny cracks appeared on the surface of the block of ice. He didn't dare to delay at all. He lifted his hand and threw the block of ice into the pill furnace. Then, with his uninjured hand, he rapidly formed hand seals. When he laid down a sealing spell on the surface of the pill furnace, there was a deep humming sound, and the entire pill furnace began to gently tremble. Zhao Jiutian had a nervous expression. After several breaths of time, the humming sound calmed down and his heartstrings relaxed. A look of wild joy appeared on his face. Success! Ha! With the extreme cold fire he exchanged for with points to temper it, the quality of the child and Mother Yinyang pill could rise another level. A high-grade child and Mother Yinyang pill was something that not even a Grandmaster-level alchemist could accomplish. If he wasn't the champion of this competition, then who else could it be? White Feng Feng, the Great Desolate Lake's young master. What a great reputation. But in the end, she was just a little girl. From the start, Zhao Jiutian hadn't placed her in his heart. Subconsciously, Qin Yu's figure flashed in his mind. Zhao Jiutian paused for a moment, a mocking smile on his face. So what if he had the help of the 9th level furnace? Chapter 330. The Great Desolate Lake's young master that Zhao Jiutian looked down upon had also reached the time to form the pill. The last bit of medicinal efficacy condensed into a pill was thrown into the pill furnace. It was like a giant net that completely wrapped around the fused medicinal efficacy, solidifying it. Pill form. With a loud shout, White Feng Feng lifted a hand and pointed a finger. With a loud bang, the pill furnace exploded into countless pieces. At this moment, a green bead the size of a cat's eye on her wrist suddenly shot out a bright green light that covered the pill furnace fragments. Like ice in the void, all of the pill furnace fragments were frozen in place. At the same time, a thumb-sized, pure white, jade-like pill also appeared between shards. White Feng Feng wiped the sweat from her forehead and let out a long breath. This was her first time attempting this, and she was lucky enough to succeed. But no matter what the reason was, success was success. It seemed that she could still fight for the championship of this competition. She flipped her hand and took out a jade bottle from her storage ring. After opening it, as if there was an invisible attraction, the powder within the jade bottle flew out and evenly sprinkled onto each pill furnace fragment. Then, the powder began to burn on its own. Like flickering oil lamps, the powder surrounded the pill. Big Brother Baoyu, you have to work harder. If someone else takes first place, I'm afraid it won't look good on your face. As White Feng Feng was speaking proudly, fellow student Qin Baoyu had smoothly finished refining the demon puppet pill. Compared to Zhao Jiutian and White Feng Feng's astonishing performance, the demon puppet pill could be called ordinary. It was just an ordinary opening of the furnace and the pill. The demon puppet pill was the size of a pigeon egg. Black and red wove together, forming extremely complex textures. Although Qin Yu's attainments in array formations weren't high, this pill still contained a great deal of his blood essence. He could faintly feel that these black and red textures were some sort of summoning array formation. Cough, cough, of course, he immediately suppressed this thought. How could the textures on a pill possibly be an array formation? Qin Yu placed the demon puppet pill into the jade bottle and swallowed it. He closed his eyes and then opened them again. Don't worry, it's not dark yet. You will soon know just what my trump card is. The pill furnace was silent, as if it were saying, you had best guarantee that you won't disappoint me. Night fell. By this time, most of the participating cultivators had finished refining. Of course, some had failed, and some had succeeded. The cultivators who failed, no matter how unwilling they were, could only sigh and leave. As for the successful ones, most of them stayed in the stone houses and used various methods to refine pills. That's right, the land of divinity and demons did indeed have pill refining techniques. For instance, the methods that Zhao and Bai used. Of course, not everyone could be as heroic as the two of them and pay such a high price to forcefully raise the grade of the pill. Shua. In the darkness, Yu opened his eyes, a sharp light surging within them. The losses he suffered from refining the demon puppet pill had been completely restored. The mouth of the furnace opened and closed. The clanging sound was ear-piercing in the darkness. It was clear that Pill Furnace Brother was impatient from waiting. Yu faintly smiled. With a thought, the small blue lamp atop the great Tao base in his Dantian sea vanished from sight. He raised his hand and slowly spread his fingers. Then, that deep blue color, like flowing seawater, enveloped a radius of 1 foot. That's right, the range it covered had shrunk once more. But Yu knew that this wasn't because its abilities had declined, but because it was hiding its strength. Perhaps because it was in the land of divinity and demons, it did indeed have some fears and needed to carefully conceal its own aura. Although Yu had seen the little blue lamp appear countless times, he was still amazed by its magnificence. Just a single glance at it was enough to make one feel warm and comfortable from the depths of their hearts, making them unable to help but be enchanted by it. But at this time, the pill furnace was far more excited than Yu. After seeing the little blue lamp, it fell silent for a short time and then began to gently tremble. Its appearance was that of someone who couldn't suppress their emotions at all. After a long time, the pill furnace calmed down. Then, strange syllables echoed in Yu's mind. Although he couldn't understand them, he was able to magically understand their meaning. 9 provinces, these two simple words rumbled endlessly in Yu's mind. It was like just this name alone possessed some invisible power. Yu's complexion was dignified. He felt that he had underestimated this pill furnace. Just its name alone was able to cause such an astonishing phenomenon. It was hard to imagine. Yu took a deep breath and said, "My name is Yu." The pill furnace didn't respond, but through the contract, Yu could feel its fluctuations. It was clear that it had remembered this name. Without saying anything else, they simply introduced each other's names. But Yu could clearly feel that there was more harmony between him and the pill furnace called 9 Province. He opened the jade bottle and poured out the demon puppet pill, bathing it in the light of the little blue lamp. A moment later, he could see the surface of the demon puppet pill darken and the increasingly dark color of black blood, as well as the increasingly complex textures. Yu relaxed a little. He was originally worried that he wouldn't be able to borrow the strength of the little blue lamp to advance the demon puppet pill he refined with his own blood. But now he could relax. 9 Province suddenly trembled. An invisible aura spread out, flooding the entire stone room. It was like a thick sponge had been stuffed into a spell, completely isolating it from the outside world and making it impossible for anyone to spy on it. Yu smiled. He wasn't surprised that 9 Province had so easily recognized him. After all, this was the little blue lamp, a unique and precious treasure in the world. Taking out the pill, Yu swallowed it and closed his eyes to refine it. There were still 2 days until the competition ended. He naturally couldn't waste this time. A journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step, and one's cultivation had to be accumulated step by step. There was no room for slacking off. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. The competition was nearing its end. The South China Nation officials had loosened their restrictions on the major television stations and online platforms. Countless cameras had already locked onto the competition field, as well as the Jade Mountain Peak that was over 100 feet high. Currently, this mountain peak was covered with countless words. If one looked carefully, they would discover that these were the ranking results of the 4th stage. Hello everyone, I am Wang Ling, the exterior host of the Xiangnan television station. Today, I am honored to have obtained the qualifications to participate in the final ranking of the competition. Alright, I won't speak any more nonsense. I ask everyone to follow our cameras and focus on the ranking Jade Peak of the competition. As the image turned and the camera aimed, it was clear that it had extremely high resolution. Even though it was far away, it was still able to clearly record everything. First, what everyone should see is the most dazzling name, the one that sparkles with 7 colors. That's right, as you all think, he is the temporary first place of this competition. Wien, This seems to be a place name. To dare use this name, he is truly a proud son of heaven. Before today, fellow Taoist Wei Yuan's performance in the competition didn't have too many highlights, but it is clear that he was hiding his true strength. In this competition, he successfully refined an upper 5th grade fire path pill. It is extremely helpful to fire attribute cultivator's cultivation, so his first place ranking is well-deserved. Wang Ling wore a wireless receiver in his ear. The signal light suddenly flashed, and he revealed a listening expression. Then his eyes brightened. Dear friends, long before the finals began, you should have already learned of the list of outstanding proud sons of heaven cultivators. For instance, Cleansing Temple's cruel Zhao Jiuqian and the Great Desolate Lake's beautiful White Fengfeng. You should all be curious as to why their rankings haven't appeared on the Jade Peak. After keeping everyone in suspense for a moment, Wang Ling said in a low voice, I just obtained news that fellow Taoist Zhao and White Fengfeng's pills are temporarily difficult to appraise because of their grade, medicinal efficacy, and other problems. In order to ensure fairness, we will immediately conduct a public verification to determine the final ranking. On the live broadcast screen, a simple but not shabby platform was rapidly built beneath the Jade Peak. Over a dozen official alchemy grandmasters appeared in front of everyone for the first time, causing countless cultivators to cry out in alarm. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are seeing right now are the most famous and powerful alchemy grandmasters of my South Shine Nation. They are the final judges of this competition. Now, Wang Ling is incomparably curious. Just what pill did fellow Taoist Zhao and White Fengfeng refine that even these grandmasters can't judge? On the live broadcast screen, the voice of an official from the South Shine Nation soon sounded out. Fellow participating Taoists, we will first verify the pill of fellow Taoist White Fengfeng from the Great Desolate Lake. He clapped his hands. Someone carried a jade bottle with both hands and quickly stepped onto the high platform, handing it over to the dozen grandmasters. After a simple judgment and confirming that there were no problems with the pill, the grandmasters all nodded, praise in their eyes. This expression caused the hearts of the countless cultivators watching the live broadcast to shake. They all revealed looks of anticipation. If this pill could cause the grandmasters to react like this, then the quality of this pill must be extraordinary. The official continued to say, after being verified by the grandmasters, there are no problems with the pill. Next, we will use a trial method to determine the medicinal efficacy of the pill. He paused for a moment and then continued to say, let me tell everyone in advance that what fellow Taoist White Fengfeng refined is an upper 5th grade sky soaring pill. Countless live broadcast cameras focused on the Great Desolate Lakes group, giving them a long close-up. White Fengfeng had a calm expression. Her fists were tightly clenched beneath her sleeves as she barely managed to control her surging emotions. An upper 5th grade sky soaring pill. Even her father and mother didn't think that this person could reach this step. Humph humph, she really is a genius. You dregs, just tremble in front of this miss. If others were to know that the cold and arrogant White Fengfeng was actually having such thoughts, they feared they would spit out a mouthful of blood dozens of meters away. Chapter 331. The fragrance of tea filled the air. Yunalon revealed a look of praise. Miss White is truly worthy of being the young master of the Great Desolate Lake. At such a young age, she was actually able to refine an upper 5th grade sky soaring pill. The White clan truly has a worthy successor. Ming Siyuan's lips curved up in a smile. He never thought that this last Fengfeng's performance would be so amazing. An upper 5th grade sky soaring pill. Amongst the younger generation, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that she could show disdain for all others. He inadvertently swept his eyes over Yuan Tiangang and said, Exalted Yun is too kind. The young master only managed to do so today because of luck. Moreover, she borrowed external strength to promote the pill, not her own strength. Yuan Tiangang faintly smiled. For Miss White to have such a performance at such a young age, I am also surprised. Revered Ming should be proud of you. The juniors of Cleansing Temple aren't bad either. Haha, I won't hide it from Revered Ming, but I am quite confident in the nine heavens. Yuan Tiangang pointed out. Ming Siyuan frowned inwardly. Even after learning the rank of the sky-soaring pill, Yuan Tiangang could still maintain such confidence. Could that Zhao Jiuqian be able to refine an even higher pill? If it were anyone else, Ming Siyuan wouldn't be worried. But Cleansing Temple. Even if the relationship between the two sides was tense, he couldn't help but acknowledge that Cleansing Temple did have the background and strength to contend with the Great Desolate Lake. Ming Siyuan didn't speak further. He revealed a cautious look, as well as a bit of disappointment. This was because he knew that only White Feng Feng and Zhao Jiuqian's pills would participate in the final appraisal. As for that formidable existence Ning Qin, he wasn't included. He sighed inwardly. Perhaps he had guessed wrong from the start. Fellow Taoist Bayu had already left and hadn't participated in the competition. Thinking about the bet between White Feng Feng and Zhao Jiuqian, Ming Siyuan's face darkened. Yuan Tiangang remained calm. A high-grade child and Mother Inyang pill was a peak existence amongst fifth-grade pills. So what if it was a sky-soaring pill? In this bet, the Great Desolate Lake would undoubtedly lose. The two Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses clashed in the void. Although there wasn't any substantial strength, the invisible oppressive aura caused the air to freeze. Yin Elan smiled, a look of interest on his face. He didn't seem to notice the confrontation between the two. Whether it was the Great Desolate Lake or Cleansing Temple, they were both titans of the South Shine Nation. The officials were naturally happy to see them fight each other. The Lord Exalted's eyes fell on the distant Jade Peak. He locked onto an unremarkable ranking in the corner. In Ning Qin, number 9527, 376 place. He was actually ranked around 300. This ranking was far beyond his expectations. Yin Elan couldn't understand how someone with such a mediocre performance could obtain the recognition of that pill furnace. The Flying Ascension pill was a type of explosive pill that could forcibly help a cultivator obtain the power to come into contact with the rules of the world for a short period of time. This was somewhat similar to the Divine Blood pill that Qin Yu refined before. It could barely be seen as a reduced version of the Divine Blood pill. In order to ensure fairness, the people who tested the pills weren't cultivators, but rather selected monster beasts that had completely lost their rationality after being stimulated by drugs. Presently, a completely jet-black cage had appeared on the platform. The steel bars that were thick like an arm were inscribed with countless talisman markings, and a wild boar that was over 3 m long was confined within the cage. Two sharp teeth protruded from its lips, and its crimson-red little eyes surged with madness and ruthlessness. Suddenly, the runes on the cage dimmed, and the wild boar immediately obtained its freedom. It angrily howled and smashed its massive body against the cage. Bang! Bang! There was a dull explosion like the roar of thunder, causing the ground to faintly tremble. 3 cultivators stood around the cage, each one holding a silver metal column. As the wild boar smashed into the cage, the metal columns constantly erupted with light, rapidly condensing into a series of numbers in the air. 3,673 horses, 3,744 horses, 3,651 horses, 3,703 horses. The runes on the cage lit up and the wild boar was imprisoned once more. An official walked in front of the cage. Without using much strength, he easily pried open the wild boar's mouth and tossed the Flying Ascension pill in. The imprisoned wild boar's eyes suddenly widened. Tiny blood vessels began to pop out from its small and round eyes. A moment later, the runes extinguished and the imprisoning strength vanished. The wild boar seemed to go crazy and began to crazily smash into the cage. With a loud bang, the cage that was fixed to the ground actually began to tremble. Countless runes rapidly surged on the steel bars. Even so, they still couldn't offset its strength. With light cracking sounds, cracks began to appear on the ground like a spiderweb. The metal columns shined with light once more. 12,436 horses. 13,421 horses. 11,987 horses. 12,744 horses. Countless cultivators widened their eyes in shock. After swallowing the flying ascension pill, this wild boar monster beast's strength had risen by nearly 4 times. On the high platform, the dozen or so alchemy grandmasters all revealed looks of shock and praise. They whispered to each other, and without any dispute, they came to a conclusion. On the Jade Peak, the originally colorful wordsman suddenly dimmed, and its position dropped to the second row from overlook the mountains. Replacing him was the Great Desolate Lake's white foam, number 3216. There was a loud gasp. Countless cultivators revealed looks of envy, but no one expressed any dissatisfaction. Even that bitter fellow Taoist from Yuan couldn't help but admit that the rank of this flying ascension pill was indeed above his fire path pill. The runes on the cage lit up once more. But the wild boar that had its combat strength sharply increased wasn't willing to be imprisoned. It crazily howled and struggled, but the array formation wasn't able to suppress it for some time. The official that had fed the flying ascension pill arrived in front of the cage, his face expressionless. He slapped the wild boar's head with his palm. This cruel and violent monster beast didn't even have a chance to cough before it died, blood gushing out of its head. This scene caused many cultivators to subconsciously shrink back, endless awe in their eyes. This common-looking and callous uncle had at least the combat strength of a peak divine soul realm cultivator. Indeed, the officials were the greatest sects and families. They had the most powerhouses serving them, and they could casually frighten others. Next, we will proceed to the second person. Cleansing Temple's Zhao Jiuqian's pill has been appraised. What fellow Taoist Zhao refined is the upper 5th grade child and Mother Yin pill. As the official announced this, the entire martial field was thrown into an uproar. The child and Mother Yin pill had a child pill and a mother pill as the main pill. Amongst 5th grade pills, it could be called the most difficult. This was because this was the same as refining 2 upper 5th grade pills at the same time. Moreover, the effects of the child and Mother Yin pill, countless cultivators widened their eyes as they stared at the high platform. This time, what was brought up were 2 cages. They were exactly the same as before, but what was imprisoned inside were 2 powerful apes. The process was the same as the flying ascension pill. First, they released the cages and tested the combat strength of the 2 apes. 3,703 horses. 3,644 horses. 3,732 horses. 3,687 horses. It seemed that the officials had carefully chosen these 2 apes. The combat strength of these 2 apes was similar to that of the wild boar monster beast from before. What followed was the beginning of a horrifying scene. It was still the cold-looking official who had killed the wild boar. He fed the child and Mother Yin pills to the 2 apes one by one. The moment the restrictions were lifted, everyone could clearly hear the agonized howls of the ape that had swallowed the child and mother pill. A faint layer of white frost first appeared, covering the ape's entire body. Then it rapidly thickened. The white frost fused together, turning into a layer of ice. Because the ape fiercely struggled, the ice constantly shattered and fell. But as time passed, its movements became increasingly slow, and it was finally sealed within. The layer of ice became increasingly thick, but it was incomparably clear. One could clearly see the pain in the eyes of the frozen ape. Unfortunately, it couldn't make a single sound. Everyone could clearly see that the ape's body was slowly withering away, as if there were invisible mouths stabbing into its body and sucking it dry. Then, its strong body gradually withered away. Finally, all that was left over was a giant skeleton. At this time, the ape still hadn't died. Through its paper-thin skin, one could clearly see its wriggling organs. From start to finish, everything was quiet. But This silence added an incomparably horrifying hue to the scene in front of them. Every cultivator that saw this felt a cold chill surge out from their hearts. Their heartbeats seemed to stop, and their blood nearly froze. The child and Mother Inyang pill used the child as a guide to seize the blood vitality, magic power, and even the soul. It fused all of this strength from yin to yang into the body of the life form that swallowed the mother pill. Thus, a completely opposite scene appeared in the other cage. Raging flames burned and jumped like a scorching sun, causing the temperature in the air to rise crazily. But such terrifying flames didn't cause any damage to the ape in the cage at all. Instead, its aura began to rise at an astonishing speed. Roar! With a cruel roar, the imprisoned ape suddenly regained its ability to move. The runes on the surface of the cage began to wildly shine. Then they surpassed the limits of what they could withstand and began to disintegrate. Bang! The ape smashed into the cage. Steel bars as thick as an arm protruded out. With a creaking sound that made one's teeth ache, the ground that had just been restored to its original state was instantly shattered. Dazzling light erupted from the metal columns, rapidly condensing into numbers. 17,329 horses. 18,733 horses. 19,414 horses. 17,532 horses. 18,073 horses. The entire cage had been thoroughly twisted. One could hear the metal columns groaning in pain. Bang! The metal cage shattered. The broken steel bars carried with them a terrifying strength as they shot out in all directions. The three cultivators holding onto the metal columns paled. Although they had late nascent soul cultivations, in front of these broken steel bars, they were as weak as paper. Humph! The callous uncle teleported out. He lifted a hand and pressed down. Space twisted and everything fell silent. The ape that rushed out of the cage, the sharp steel bars that shot out in all directions, the crushed stones on the ground. Everything fell silent. The callous uncle was expressionless. He pushed aside the debris in front of him and arrived in front of the ape. Ignoring the tumbling flames, he pointed a finger between the ape's eyebrows. Puff! Strength broke out of the ape's brain, rolling up a massive amount of red and white matter. The ape's bloodshot eyes were filled with madness. Then, like a falling tide, it faded away, turning dark. Walala! Crushed stones and steel bars fell to the ground. The ape fell backwards, its body slamming into the ground. Because of this sudden change, the entire arena fell into a deathly silence. Yunalon had a look of praise on his face. This child, the Mother Inyang pill, has likely reached the peak of high grade, and even has the shadow of a top-grade pill. This is why it has such amazing medicinal efficacy. Cleansing Temple is truly filled with heroic talents. Yuan Tiangang laughed. Revered Cloud is too serious. This junior Juqian still needs to be tempered, but he does have excellent talent in alchemy. After I return, I will propose to the temple master that Juqian be my cleansing temple's young temple master and open the inheritance stone for him. Yin Dilan nodded. With such talent, he should indeed be rewarded. The title of young temple master is well deserved. Chapter 332. Ming Siyuan's complexion paled, and he coldly snorted. What kind of status did the young master have? She was involved in the Great Desolate Lake's inheritance. It was absolutely impossible for her to enter Cleansing Temple. But this was a bet that White Feng Feng and Zhao Jiutian had made in front of everyone's eyes. If they were to go back on their word, they feared they would draw the ridicule of the world. Moreover, Cleansing Temple wouldn't easily give up such a good opportunity. How could they resolve this matter? Revered Ming felt a headache coming on. He couldn't help but feel a bit of resentment towards fellow Taoist Baoyu, whom he had never met before. If it weren't for this person, he would never have allowed the young lady to make a bet with Zhao Jiutian. Even if she went back on her word, she would have had a reason to do so. It would have been better than the current situation. Yinalan faintly smiled. Revered Ming, there is no need to worry. The Great Desolate Lake and Cleansing Temple are both influential influences within my South Shine Nation. Perhaps Miss White's trip this time will be a turning point for your two sides to cooperate. From now on, everyone will live in harmony and promote each other's development. Wouldn't that be a wonderful story? Yuan Tian Gang secretly scolded a lot of nonsense, and the smile on his face became more and more intense. He had a sincere expression of, "Old Yun, you are right, and I give you 32 likes." Ming Si Yuan's complexion became even more unsightly. The three of them were all Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses, and their eyesight far surpassed that of ordinary cultivators. When the large ape broke free from its cage, they already knew what the result would be. On the platform, the dozen or so alchemy grandmasters were debating among themselves. In the end, they passed a vote and made a decision. On the Jade Peak, White Fengfeng's name disappeared without warning and then appeared in the second row. The one who replaced her was Cleansing Temple's Zhao Jiutian, number 5428. Aha, Miss Bai, why don't you follow me to Cleansing Temple as a guest today? When the dust settled, the pale-faced Zhao Jiutian could no longer restrain the excitement in his heart. He threw his head back and laughed arrogantly. His eyes swept across the surroundings, filled with disdain and arrogance. Looking around the entire audience, most of the young elites of the South Shine Nation were gathered here. He, Zhao Jiutian, had climbed to the top in a single move and looked down on all the other geniuses. He naturally had the qualifications to be arrogant. At this moment, he was the center of the world. Countless cameras aimed their high-definition lenses at Zhao Jiutian, broadcasting his current demeanor and bearing throughout the entire South Shine Nation. Countless young female cultivators were watching from the various screens. Their hearts were pounding as they looked at Zhao Jiutian's handsome and carefree face, and their hearts were filled with restlessness. Impossible! My family's young miss has an upper 5th grade flying pill. How could she lose? Shady business. There's definitely a shady deal. We request for another appraisal. The Great Desolate Lakes cultivators roared out one after another, their faces filled with shock and anger. White Feng shouted out, "Shut up!" Her eyebrows furrowed, and her young face was icy cold. Her dignified aura was like a boulder, making it hard for others to breathe. A defeat is a defeat. My Bai family hasn't fallen to a point where we can't accept defeat. As for the results of this competition, my Great Desolate Lake has no objections. His words made the faces of the alchemists on the high platform brighten up a lot. Today, nearly all of the South Shine Nation's powerful broadcasting stations and internet platforms had started a live broadcast of the competition. They absolutely would not allow anyone to slander their professionalism and integrity. Black Bebe had a heavy expression. "Cousin," White Feng lightly said, "Cousin, I know what to do." Black Bebe opened his mouth and finally sighed. He was well aware that White Fengfeng's current actions were the most correct. But if she admitted defeat, then she would have to abide by the bet and enter Cleansing Temple for half a year. This was something the Great Desolate Lake absolutely could not accept. Things were getting troublesome. Zhao Jiutian laughed. "Miss White is truly honest and straightforward. I admire you endlessly." White Fengfeng's eyes were cold. "In 10 days, I'll go to Cleansing Temple. Just wait for me." Zhao Jiutian cupped his hands together. "Then, I will respectfully await your arrival." Shua. Ming Si Yuan appeared, his expression solemn. "Young master, before I leave, the master and madam asked me to bring you back. There's an important matter they need to discuss with you." He turned and lightly said, "As for the bet with Cleansing Temple, it will have to wait for Miss to return before fulfilling it." Zhao Jiutian's complexion changed. He could naturally see that this was a delaying tactic. But facing Ming Si Yuan, no matter how unwilling he was, he didn't dare to say anything. However, Cleansing Temple also had a Blue Sea Realm master guarding it. Yuan Tiangang had a calm expression. "Revered Ming, since this is a bet between two juniors, let them discuss it amongst themselves. With our statuses, why should we interfere?" His words contained a cold intent. Ming Siyuan remained expressionless. Since the great desolate lake's young master has spoken, he naturally won't go back on his word. He is only delaying it for a period of time, so there is no need for revered Yuan to worry about it. Yuan Tiangong's lips curled up. Revered Ming, there is no need for you to say such words to this brother. You and I have cultivated for so long and have seen many things before. Today, this brother will only ask if Miss White is willing to fulfill the bet. If not, then this brother will immediately bring Zhao Jiutian away and order him not to mention this matter again in the future. How about it? Ming Siyuan's complexion paled. What a good way to advance by retreating. If he tried to stop them, then he would be regarded as the great desolate lake going back on their word and reneging on the bet. If this were any other time, what did it matter if they reneged on their word? At worst, they would just fight. In any case, it wasn't the first or second day that the great desolate lake found cleansing temple displeasing to the eye. But today, behind the cameras, there were many pairs of excited eyes. Ming Siyuan was well aware that if he didn't handle this well, then tomorrow the entire South Shy Nation would be flooded with negative news about the great desolate lake. Yuan Tiangang added another blow. If the one who lost today was Zhao Jiutian, then I wouldn't have said a single word and would have allowed Miss White to deal with him as she pleased. Unfortunately, people are different in the end. White Feng Feng suddenly said, Uncle Ming, I'll have to trouble you to tell father and mother that I will be going to cleansing temple to cultivate for half a year. If there really is something important, then you can come and see me. Father, mother, you must come. Once I go to cleansing temple, I will become a piece of meat on the chopping block. If you don't hurry up, your daughter will be miserable. Big brother Bao Yu, where are you? Why haven't you appeared to help me at this time? Could it be that you don't like Feng Feng anymore? Cough, cough. Speaking of which, when did you start to like her? I don't even know. The battle between the great desolate lake and cleansing temple had attracted everyone's attention. Even a newly minted champion classmate, Zhao Jiutian, was given a certain amount of cold treatment. So, even though he had already walked to the front of the stage, no one was willing to look at him. Fellow Taoist, I would like to apply for a re-examination of the pill I refined. Helplessly, Qin Yu found a police cultivator who was maintaining order and explained his intentions. That's right. In order to show that the competition was fair, participants were allowed to apply for a re-examination if they thought the disparity in results was too great. However, in the past competitions, there were very few cultivators that applied for a re-examination. The officials that judged the rankings were all skilled alchemists. In addition to the strict appraisal procedures, the chances of an accident occurring were extremely low. The police cultivator in front of him didn't seem to have heard him clearly. He reluctantly looked away and swept his eyes over Qin Yu. He impatiently said, What did you say? Qin Yu was helpless. He could only repeat his words. And at this time, the police cultivator seemed to recognize Qin Yu. His complexion changed and his attitude immediately warmed. He looked around and didn't see any live broadcast, so he let out a long breath of relief. Before, that unlucky official had been reduced to the point where everyone wanted to beat him up just because he had a poor attitude towards this boy. His reputation had been ruined and his life was over. He didn't want to follow in that person's footsteps. Fellow Taoist Ning Qin, do you need me to re-examine the pill you refined? Qin Yu didn't care about the change in attitude. His heart was in turmoil right now, so he nodded and didn't say anything. The police cultivator said, Please wait a moment. I will immediately make a report. Looking at the police cultivator hurriedly leave, Qin Yu wanted to say, Can't you just make a phone call? Why do you look like you're running away? Looking at the increasingly tense atmosphere between the great desolate lake and cleansing temple, Qin Yu bitterly smiled. He really didn't want to be involved in this matter and steal their limelight. But he couldn't wait any longer. The police cultivator left and didn't return. But it was clear that Ning Qin's request had already been passed on. Many eyes on the high platform looked over. Although the South Shy Nation officials had given them the right to re-examine a pill, not everyone could casually exercise this right. Otherwise, if everyone said the same thing, Wouldn't they be exhausted to death? However, Qin Yu did have the qualifications to do so. Disregarding everything else, just the troubles he had caused, no one dared to underestimate him. Drawing back 10,000 steps, exalted Yunalon seemed to be interested in him. Just this point alone was enough to change their minds. Cough. Seniors revered Ming, revered Yuan. Please wait a moment. We have received an application and need to re-examine a pill. The official in charge of the appraisal respectfully said. He was cursing Qin Yu to death inwardly. To have him interrupt them at this time was absolutely asking for trouble. Good. No. The first response was from Ming Siyuan, and the second was naturally from Yuan Tiangang. It was normal for the two of them to have diametrically opposite attitudes. One wanted to find an excuse to overlook this matter, and the other wanted to take advantage of the situation and force the great desolate lake to agree. The managing cultivator immediately fell into a daze. His forehead dripped with a cold sweat. He didn't know how to respond. Ming Siyuan's eyes were icy cold. Revered Yuan, in the end, the matters between you and me are both private matters. But right now, we are in the midst of the South Shine Nation's grand competition. Isn't it a bit too much to delay the time of fellow Taoists because of personal matters? At this moment, the audience in front of the various screens were crazily shouting out in their hearts. We aren't afraid of being delayed. Just continue. Re-examining a pill. Who the hell will want to watch? Yuan Tiangang furrowed his eyebrows. Ming Siyuan's words were reasonable. If he insisted on stopping him, he wouldn't be able to do so. But if he were to miss out on such a good opportunity, then he feared that White Feng Feng might enter Cleansing Temple. His thoughts raced, and his lips curved up in a smile. Revered Ming's words aren't wrong. But I've never liked waiting. Just wait for me. It will be over soon. Who is it that wants to re-examine the pill? A low and deep voice, stimulated by his powerful cultivation, instantly spread through the entire audience. Qin Yu's lips twitched. He braced himself and stepped forwards. Greetings, revered Yuan. It is this junior. In front of the Blue Sea realm, no amount of respect was excessive, unless you wanted to seek death for no reason. Yuan Tiangang frowned for a moment before composing himself. Ming Qin, I know who you are. I only have a few words for you. If you cancel the re-examination request, then you can join Cleansing Temple and I will give you a good position. He changed the topic and swept his cold eyes around. Of course, if there are others who also want to apply for a re-examination, then don't blame me for being impolite. Ming Siyuan cursed inwardly at how cunning he was. But before he could speak, Yuan Tiangang sealed up the last loophole. Revered Ming, it isn't that I want to bully you, but the affairs of the world are difficult and one must be cautious. Of course, I believe that Revered Ming wouldn't send a cultivator from the Great Desolate Lake to apply for a re-examination to deliberately embarrass me, right? Chapter 333. Yuan Tiangang had a calm expression, a faint smile on his lips. Ming Siyuan and the people from the Great Desolate Lake all had a weakness, and that was that they paid too much attention to face. If the one who lost today was Zhao Jiuqian, then he wouldn't have agreed to release him no matter what. As for those words he said just now, idiot, since he had already won, it wasn't like he would lose any face if he said a few words. Moreover, he could also stimulate his opponent, so why not? Old Yuan held his hands behind his back. He felt as if everything was under his control. As long as he could capture White Feng Feng, then he could find a breakthrough in the deadlock between Cleansing Temple and the Great Desolate Lake. Of course, this breakthrough would give Cleansing Temple the absolute upper hand. There was even a chance that they could push the Great Desolate Lake into a hopeless situation. In Yuan Tiangang's mind, he had thought of at least several hundred ways to deal with the Great Desolate Lake. But before he could think of a better method, a helpless voice sounded out in his ears. I thank Revered Yuan for his kindness, but this junior's strength is mediocre. I fear that I will ruin Cleansing Temple's reputation, so there is no need. Ming Siyuan was startled. Then he laughed. Good. I appreciate a junior cultivator like you who has a backbone and ideals. You and I are cultivators. This is how we should be. Only when we rely on ourselves to walk down the road can we be truly solid. I believe that in the future, you will surely have extraordinary achievements. His face was full of praise, as if he were looking at a peerless, proud son of heaven that only appeared once in 100 years. His warm eyes were filled with encouragement. Brat, you've done well. Continue like this, your future will be bright. Yuan Tiangong's complexion darkened. This junior Ning Qin actually dared to defy his will. This was simply unimaginable. There was also Ming Siyuan. He had just mocked Qin Yu. The cultivators of the great desolate lake cherished their face. Now that he heard these words, it was like he had been slapped in the face, and his heart turned even colder. Ning Qin, do you know what you are doing, what you are missing out on, and what you will obtain? Ming Siyuan lightly said, Revered Yuan, with your cultivation, it is a bit beneath you to openly threaten a junior. Yuan Tiangang had no expression. He disobeyed my will, which is the same as disrespecting me. Even if I punish him, it is only right and proper. This was the advantage of being shameless. He could say anything he wanted without shame. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. Offending a Blue Sea Realm superpowerhouse wasn't a wise decision, but he couldn't give up all of his efforts just because he was threatened. Only the strong could control their own destiny. Qin Yu's desire to become stronger became incomparably urgent. He took a deep breath and said slowly, Revered Yuan, I have my reasons. Please forgive me. Yuan Tiangang was so angry that he smiled. Good, very good. An invisible pressure swept out in all directions like a tide. Yin Ilan's figure suddenly appeared on the field. He was like a boulder falling into the sea, suppressing everything. Revered Yuan, Ning Qin is a participating cultivator. Since he has doubts about his ranking, he has the right to request a re-examination. These words expressed his dissatisfaction. Yuan Tiangang frowned. He couldn't figure out just what Yin Ilan was thinking. If the great desolate lake and cleansing temple fought each other, that would be in the best interest of the South Shine Nation. Yet, he actually wanted to intervene. There was a hint of vigilance in his heart. Before he figured out the reason, Yuan Tiangang decided to retreat temporarily and hid his breath. Aha, I was too impulsive. I hope Supreme Cloud can forgive me for my impropriety. Venerated Ming, I hope that you and Miss Bai won't run away from reality. We'll talk about the bet later. Humph. Ming Siyuan coldly snorted and returned to the side of the people from the great desolate lake. White Feng Feng stubbornly maintained her momentum, but there was a pitiful look in her eyes. This look left Ming Siyuan unable to vent his anger. With a cold expression, he began to think about how to break out of his current predicament without losing face. At this time, the pondering Lord Venerated Ming didn't know that the matter he was worried about would soon be resolved without any effort. Yin Ilan smiled and cupped his hands together. I thank Revered Yuan for giving me this little bit of face. He turned and lightly ordered, Men, bring the pill refined by Ning Qin. All of the pills in the competition, besides those used by White Feng Feng and Zhao Jiuqian who needed to test their pills, were sealed away. They would only be disposed of after the competition came to an end. Soon, the pill numbered 9527 was brought over. Along with it was the cultivator responsible for appraising it. He was a middle-aged man in blue clothes. His complexion was a bit pale, but he remained calm. Although the audience in front of their screens were a bit dissatisfied that the liveliness between the great desolate lake and cleansing temple had been interrupted, since it involved Ning Qin, their interest was quickly piqued. They also wanted to know why Ning Qin would risk offending a Blue Sea Realm superpowerhouse and insist on re-examining his pill. Just why? Could it be that he believed he had a chance of becoming the champion? Besides this, they couldn't think of anything else that could cause him to disregard the price like this. Well, they had heard that the pill furnace in Ning Qin's hands was quite unusual, but alchemy couldn't rely on a pill furnace alone. Just looking at his previous results, it was already a stroke of dogshit luck that allowed him to enter the finals. Moreover, who didn't know that Ning Qin was refining a useless pill like the demon puppet pill? Disregarding the difficulty, even if he barely managed to refine it, how high could the grade be? Re-examining, there was no meaning to it at all. Yun Ilan lightly said, "You were the one who appraised the pill refined by Ning Qin?" The blue-clothed, middle-aged man hurriedly bowed. Reporting to Exalted Yun, "It was me. Tell me your reason." "Yes." The blue-clothed, middle-aged man straightened himself and coldly glared at Qin. "Fellow Taoist, Ning Qin, the demon puppet pill you refined was refined with your own blood and the eternal night demon mushroom." He opened the jade box and poured the pill into his hand. "Everyone, please take a look. This pill can barely be considered round on the outside, and it is dim without any light at all. Moreover, the medicinal fragrance is faint. At most, it is an ordinary pill. Of course, in order to ensure that the appraisal is fair, we will scrape off a small amount of powder from each pill and analyze the energy contained within. The final result of this demon puppet pill is that it is low 4th grade. Thus, I have ranked it 376th. May I ask if fellow Taoist Ning Qin is confused about something that requires a re-examination?" On the appraisal platform, an alchemy grandmaster stood up. He nodded and said, "This demon puppet pill was re-examined by me, and the results were the same. 376th place is very appropriate." Yin Ilan swept his eyes over Qin. Seeing that he was still as calm as before, his thoughts stirred. He said, "Then today, I ask the various grandmasters to conduct another appraisal. If it were anyone else, the grandmasters wouldn't have bothered with them. Just what sort of characters were they? Every minute they spent was worth several thousand spirit stones." In particular, when Qin Yu proposed a re-examination, he had questioned the appraisal committee of the competition. This was a great loss of face for them. But now, the grandmasters had no objections. They took out the demon puppet pill, all of them stirring their spirits and bringing out 120% of their skills. They had to carefully appraise it. Appraise it well. Appraise it so well that no one could say anything. "Brat, you dare to question our professionalism? Let me tell you, you're done for." Beneath the live broadcast cameras, the 10 grandmasters performed a visual feast called professionalism. The entire appraisal process flowed like clouds and water, but it was also extremely rigorous. Even a layman would be convinced after seeing the entire process. The process wasn't long. After a brief summary, the grandmasters put away their tools and elected someone to read the results. "Exalted Yin, we have completed the re-examination." Beneath the monocle, a cold light flashed. The grandmaster's voice was calm and steady. "Demon puppet pill, ordinary standard pill, ordinary medicinal efficacy, low 4th grade. However, after careful monitoring, we found that the impurities in this demon puppet pill have exceeded the limit, so its strength will definitely be affected. Although it is still considered a 4th grade pill, its rank of 376 is a bit inappropriate. We have unanimously decided that it should be lowered to 408. After applying for a re-examination of the pill, not only were they unable to obtain a better ranking, but they had instead been knocked down. This result was beyond everyone's expectations. The martial stage immediately fell silent. The audience watching from the screens subconsciously dropped their jaws, their faces dull. Yun Ilan frowned. He had personally ordered a re-examination. Even if these grandmasters were dissatisfied, they still wouldn't dare to tamper with the results. His eyes fell on Qin Yu and revealed a cold intent. Although he was curious about the choice of the pill furnace, he wouldn't allow a junior to act recklessly in front of him. There had to be an explanation for this matter. Yuan Tiangang lightly said, "I heard that Ning Qin took many opportunities to show off on the internet and attract countless attention. Youngsters these days are truly incredible. In order to attract attention, they are willing to do anything." This was clearly to label Qin Yu as someone who courted death. Ming Siyuan frowned inwardly. But in the end, Qin Yu had temporarily helped the great desolate lake out of trouble. He thought for a moment and slowly said, "Perhaps that isn't the case." Yuan Tiangang looked over. "Does revered Ming mean that there is something wrong with this pill's appraisal results? Forgive me for my poor eyes, but I really can't see what is so special about this demon puppet pill. How about I make a bet with revered Ming? We will bet on the quality of this demon puppet pill, and revered Ming will decide the stakes. How about it? Ming Siyuan's lips curved up, his words filled with ridicule. Ming Siyuan's complexion sank. Umph. I have no intention of questioning the results. Revered Yuan is too sensitive. He pretended as if he hadn't heard anything about the bet. Qin Yu suddenly spoke up, but his words surpassed everyone's expectations. He cupped his hands together and bowed. Revered Yuan, this junior would like to make a bet with you. If the quality of the demon puppet pill is acceptable, then I ask that you forgive my previous offense. Otherwise, I am willing to accept any punishment that revered Yuan has to bear. Yuan Tianyang was silent for a moment. Then, he shook his head and chuckled. How interesting. A mere nascent soul junior actually has the courage to make a bet with me. Ha, good, I agree. If you lose, then cut off your hands and never refine pills again in the future. This punishment was extremely heavy, but in front of a Blue Sea Realm junior, a nascent soul junior was as fragile as an ant. To dare to make a bet was in itself a great offense, so it was natural for him to be punished. No one would express any sympathy. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. He cupped his hands together and bowed. Thank you, revered Yuan. He stood up. Revered Yuan, I wonder if this junior can personally prove the effect of this demon puppet pill. Yin Ilan's eyes flashed. All right. On the stage, the dozen or so grandmasters all had gloomy complexions. Their hearts were filled with anger. Their gazes seemed to tear thousands of bloody holes all over Qin Yu's body. This junior was too rampant. With the combined strength of over a dozen people, the results had already been verified, and yet he still dared to act like this. This was no different from slapping them in the face. This was simply intolerable. Arrogant junior, you don't know your depths. Humph, if you try to be brave for a moment, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Give it to him, give it to him. I want to see just what evidence he can bring out. At most, he will just test the pill and summon a puppet. What tricks can he play? Chapter 334. Qin Yu received the demon puppet pill from the grandmasters with icy cold eyes. This pill was refined by him, so he knew there was no problem with it. Looking down, it was indeed as the grandmasters had said. It was ordinary and the medicinal efficacy ordinary. But the truth was that this seemingly ordinary demon puppet pill was actually not ordinary at all. 2 days passed. In the darkness of night, Qin Yu took out the little blue lamp and bathed the demon puppet pill in its light, raising its rank. The first night passed normally. On the surface of the demon puppet pill, there were runes that looked like summoning arrays. As time passed, they became increasingly clear. The entire pill was incomparably warm, sparkling with a treasure light. One could tell at a glance that it was extraordinary. But what happened was that after midnight of the second night, the demon puppet pill that was bathed in the deep blue light suddenly darkened. Countless tiny cracks even appeared on its surface. Qin Yu was shocked. He had never encountered such a situation before. In just several breaths of time, the superb quality demon puppet pill had turned into such a pitiful state. He even suspected that as long as he touched it, it would shatter into powder. Tomorrow was the deadline to hand over the pill. Even if he tried to refine it now, there wasn't enough time. Without the little blue lamp to purify it, the demon puppet pill he refined simply had no chance of winning. As Qin Yu frowned, Ninth Province sent out a second thought fluctuation after he signed the contract with Qin Yu. Demon puppet pill, mutation. Need, strength, eternal night, demon mushroom. The meaning wasn't difficult to understand. So, Qin Yu immediately began the second refinement. As expected, the mixture of blood and eternal night, demon mushroom, that Ninth Province refined was directly absorbed by the demon puppet pill after approaching. The cracks on its surface greatly reduced. Then, there was a second, a third, a fourth. Qin Yu exchanged for 7 eternal night demon mushrooms. 3 of them were refined into the demon puppet pill, and the last 4 were completely absorbed by the demon puppet pill after fusing with his blood. And at this time, the cracks on the demon puppet pill completely disappeared. But the treasure light and the runes on its surface also faded away. On the surface, this demon puppet pill seemed extremely ordinary. But only Qin Yu could feel the astonishing strength contained within it. It could be said that the quality of this demon puppet pill even surpassed Qin Yu's own expectations. He was a bit worried that if he handed over this pill, it would attract unnecessary trouble. After all, with his cultivation, it was hard to explain just how he had refined such a super pill. With a nervous heart, he handed over the demon puppet pill. He had already prepared himself to welcome the attention of everyone. He had even thought of an excuse to face all sorts of questions. But reality played a joke on him. As soon as the 376th place ranking appeared on the Jade Peak, he nearly choked on his own saliva. Even if there were as many proud elites in the land of divinity and demons as dogs, it was impossible for his demon puppet pill to be pushed to such a miserable position. Obviously, there was a huge deviation in the appraisal results, which led to the current situation. As Qin Yu held the demon puppet pill, he could feel the surging strength within. A trace of enlightenment appeared in his mind. This should be because of a mutation. Thus, only he, the one who refined the demon puppet pill, could feel its strength. In the eyes of others, it was just a low-level, low-grade 4th-grade pill that barely took shape. Qin Yu's eyes swept over the stage. At the arrogant and sneering grandmasters, a trace of pity appeared in his eyes. They had been completely unjustly targeted. With such a large-scale live broadcast, the masters' reputations would be smashed to smithereens after today. He lifted a hand and bit down on his fingertip. Then, he placed a finger on the demon puppet pill and threw it into the air. Countless eyes and cameras quickly turned to aim at the tumbling demon puppet pill in the air. Then, a rich black and red fog erupted without warning. In the blink of an eye, it covered the surrounding 1,000 feet of space. A rich smell of blood and a monstrous infernal energy tumbled about. The black and red fog rapidly condensed, forming an incomparably massive array formation in the blink of an eye. Rumble, rumble. Between the heavens and earth, endless spiritual strength boiled and roared. It crazily rushed into the array formation. Their speed was fast, and there were so many of them that they were like rivers returning to the sea. The array formation in the air seemed to be activated at this time. It began to shine brightly, erupting with a terrifying aura that rumbled into the nothingness. Space trembled. Tiny cracks appeared. Then, without warning, the shattered space was broken from within. What pierced through was a pitch-black fist, its surface covered with snake-like scales. The fist turned into a palm. It grasped the edges of the shattered space and ruthlessly tore outwards. Then, the cracked space completely disintegrated. A black figure walked out from the shattered space. Its appearance was similar to a human's, but it had no facial features. Its entire body was covered in pitch-black scales. From afar, it looked like a shadow. Between the heavens and earth, the temperature crazily fell. Black icicles began to appear, spinning as they sprinkled towards the earth. As they touched the ground, a massive layer of black ice condensed. In the blink of an eye, everything within sight was frozen solid. A cultivator dazedly reached out a hand and caught a piece of icicle that fell from the sky. In the next moment, an incomparably horrified expression appeared on his face. But at this time, he no longer had the chance to regret his actions. The black ice instantly froze him within. Ah, what the hell is this? Hurry and run. Don't touch that icicle. With panic-stricken screams, the surrounding cultivators rapidly retreated. Luckily, the icicles only covered 1,000 feet, otherwise there would have been massive casualties. The unlucky cultivator that was sealed in ice had already been rescued by an official master. The official shattered the layer of ice covering his body, but this peak divine soul powerhouse revealed a shocked expression. As he looked at Qin Yu, There was a deep sense of dread in his eyes. With his cultivation, when he broke through the ice, he actually felt a trace of fear that came from the depths of his soul. The black figure that was summoned broke through space and appeared in front of Chinyu. It stepped onto the black ice and knelt down on one knee. There weren't any words, but anyone could clearly feel his strength and his submission. The entire martial field was deathly silent. In the distance, even the tens of millions of cultivators watching through screens were completely stunned. This was the demon puppet pill. Qin Yu's heart shook. Although he knew that after the demon puppet pill mutated, it possessed an extremely formidable strength, the results still surpassed his expectations. The demon puppet pill should have summoned a puppet formed from medicinal efficacy and heaven and earth spiritual strength. It could only exist for a short period of time before dissipating. But at this time, he could clearly feel the aura of life that the black figure in front of him emitted. It was alive. The demon puppet pill had actually summoned a powerful, living life form. What kind of joke was this? Chinyu took a deep breath and suppressed his tumbling thoughts. He barely managed to maintain his composure and turn around. Revered Cloud, this is the demon puppet pill that Junior refined. Inwardly, he bitterly smiled again and again. At this time, even an idiot could tell that his limelight had been too great, so great that it couldn't be any greater. With things having come this far, he could only hope that the demon puppet pill wouldn't bring him too much trouble. But it was clear that this was only a delusion. The appearance of the heaven-defying demon puppet pill didn't just bring trouble, but also a great life or death danger. And in this danger, Chinyu had obtained an unexpected harvest. Of course, this was a story for another time. At this time, as long as one wasn't blind, they would know that the some grandmasters had all been slapped in the face. This wasn't a light slap, but a flurry of blows. Their faces were black and swollen, so much so that it was impossible to see their original color. After a moment of shock, everyone looked at the grandmasters with pity in their eyes. Was this a lower fourth-grade pill? Too many impurities in the pill? And 376 wasn't suitable, so it should be reduced to 408? If there were a hole in the ground, these grandmasters really wanted to crawl in and never show their heads again. How shameful! Yuan Tiangong's complexion paled. Even he didn't expect this result. He had been hunting geese all year round, but today he'd been pecked in the eye by a little house sparrow. It didn't matter if he lost the bet. At worst, he would just attack when there was no one around. What he was thinking about now was the bet between Zhao Jiuqian and White Feng Feng. Perhaps he had picked up a stone and smashed it on his own foot. Even with Yuan Tiangong's shrewdness, he still couldn't help but curse in his heart. White Feng Feng's eyes widened, and her face flushed red. She couldn't suppress her excitement as she whispered, turning around in a hopeless situation. Zhao Jiuqian. You never thought that someone as beautiful as me would have such luck. Little brother Ning Qin, you are too amazing. I love you to death. Black Bebe was overjoyed, but a strange expression crossed his face. His cousin was a smart person, but had she really been scared to death just now? How could she not have thought of this? His eyes fell on a Qin Yu's dark and ordinary face. As he thought about the disdain he had shown towards Qin Yu before, beads of sweat began to form on his forehead. Senior, if it really is you, then please be magnanimous and don't bother with an ignorant junior like me. Ming Siyuan's eyes revealed a deep look that he immediately restrained. He pretended to laugh in a carefree manner. Good. Little friend Ning Qin is truly an outstanding young man. When I was young, I was far from being able to compare with you. His eyes fell onto Yuan Tiangong. Revered Yuan, didn't you just say that the bet between us isn't over? I also think that it's best to clarify things face to face. Blood tumbled in Yuan Tiangong's chest, and he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. What a good Ming Siyuan. I always thought you were a modest gentleman, but I never thought that you would be able to play this trick so smoothly. But what he said before was too firm. Even if he wanted to find an excuse, there was no way to do so. In the end, there was still a difference between being thick-skinned and being shameless. Ilan's heart shook. A look of praise appeared in his eyes. This was truly worthy of being a treasure furnace that was passed down from an unknown land. Its effects were truly extraordinary. An ordinary demon puppet pill could actually be refined to such an astonishing effect. As a blue sea realm superpowerhouse, he could clearly feel just how formidable the summoned shadow was. But he didn't discover that this shadow wasn't a simple puppet, but a mystical and special life form. That's right, Revered Cloud had already thought of the most perfect explanation for why Qin Yu was able to refine such an astonishing demon puppet pill. In Yunalon's opinion, perhaps Qin Yu was hiding some extraordinary ability on his body. But the reason he was able to refine the demon puppet pill was absolutely because of the treasure furnace. There was no doubt about this. Since the treasure furnace could display such an astonishing strength, then Qin Yu, who was recognized by it, was worth it for the South Shine Nation to try and win him over. Chapter 335. On the appraisal platform, the Grandmasters all had dispirited expressions, as if they had lost their souls. Their spiritual worlds had suffered a devastating blow. Over a dozen people had joined forces to appraise it, and yet they hadn't been able to discover how powerful this demon puppet pill was. If this was because of carelessness or arrogance, then this result might have been acceptable. But the truth was that they had taken out their full strength to appraise it. This was something the Grandmasters couldn't accept, and they even began to doubt their own abilities. As Yun Ilan's voice fell, there was an awkward silence. Then, the Grandmaster who spoke looked up with difficulty. Behind his monocle, the light in his eyes dimmed. Reporting to Exalted One, we take back our previous words. This demon puppet pill is the true first-place winner of this competition. His eyes turned to Qin Yu. His lips moved, and he bitterly said, "Fellow Taoist Ning Qin, it was this old man who had eyes but failed to see. If we have offended you before, I ask that you forgive us." The truth spoke louder than all else. Seeing the Grandmasters lower their proud heads with their own eyes, the countless cultivators cheered in satisfaction. But amidst this joy, there was also a bit of sympathy. Thus, in the silence, a bit of complexity appeared on their faces. Qin Yu's thoughts raced. He cupped his hands together and said, "Grandmasters speak too seriously. I just happen to know some special refining methods. Moreover, the strength of this demon puppet pill has also surpassed my expectations." His sincere expression caused the Grandmaster's expressions to soften. After all, this was some sort of long-lost refining method. It was understandable that they couldn't appraise it. But no matter what, this was still Qin Yu giving them a way out of this embarrassing situation. The Grandmasters were grateful, but also incomparably embarrassed. They had originally vowed that they would teach Qin Yu just how high the heavens were and how deep the earth was. But who knew that in the blink of an eye, they would need Qin Yu to help them out. In the eyes of the Grandmasters, Qin Yu was magnanimous and gave them a way out of this embarrassing situation. But in truth, Qin Yu was only using this opportunity to explain why the demon puppet pill was so formidable. As these words fell into Yun Ilan's ears, he became even more certain that the source of the demon puppet pill's strength lay in the treasure furnace. Zhao Jiutian's eyes widened, an expression of disbelief and unwillingness on his face. He stared helplessly on as his name was forcefully pushed down to second place. At the highest point of the Jade Peak, a rainbow-colored light sparkled. New words appeared. In Qin Yu, number 9527, first place. Concocting the child mother Yinyang pill had already left Zhao Jiutian with significant injuries. Now that his mind was in turmoil, his vision darkened, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. The South Shine Nation's youth alchemy competition was filled with twists and turns. Finally, with Zhao Jiutian spitting out a mouthful of blood, the curtain fell on the South Shine Nation's youth alchemy competition. Through the live broadcast, the rainbow color name that appeared atop the Jade Peak spread to every corner of the South Shine Nation. Ning Qin's name became a hot topic on the internet once more. The number of followers on his Weibo account soared. Countless female cultivators cried and left messages expressing their love for him. As long as he was willing, they could consummate their marriage tonight and give him a child next year. Ha ha! That bastard Zhao Jiuqian, he was actually angered to the point of vomiting blood. He really is narrow-minded. I heard that his anger rushed to his heart, and several blood vessels in his head exploded. Hee, how pitiful. White Feng Feng placed her hands on her hips, a happy expression on her face. It was hard to see any sympathy from her. Black Bebe rolled his eyes. Cousin, the fact that Zhao Jiuqian is injured like this is the best excuse. Cleansing Temple definitely won't allow him to leave with us. White Feng Feng was stunned. Are you saying that bastard Zhao Jiuqian was pretending? Black Bebe curled his lips. That might not be true, but with this sort of injury, there's a high chance it will be exaggerated. Perhaps he will be better than tomorrow, struggling on his deathbed. White Feng Feng stomped her feet in anger. She cursed out loud at everyone from Cleansing Temple, calling them shameless bastards. Ming Siyuan coughed. He lightly said, "That's enough. You were lucky this time. If it weren't for little friend Ning Qin's sudden appearance, I want to see just how you would have ended things." Black Bebe stifled a laugh. Revered Ming was also prepared to be shameless just now, but hearing these words, he must have been embarrassed. Humph! Ming Siyuan coughed. Black Bebe quickly lowered his head, as if he didn't know anything. White Feng Feng clenched her teeth for a long time. If Cleansing Temple dares to act shamelessly, then I won't let them off easy. This matter isn't over yet. You guys were so aggressive before, but now that you've been knocked to the ground, you still want to let this pass? Dream on. Ming Siyuan warned Black Bebe. Then, his expression returned to normal. He thought for a moment and said, "Young master, how do you feel about this little friend Ning Qin?" White Feng Feng had a confused expression. "I'm very grateful to him. He helped me avoid being humiliated by Cleansing Temple." Black Bebe nearly fell to the ground. "Cousin, could your reaction be any slower than this?" Revered Ming wasn't asking about this sort of thing. Cough, cough. "Cousin, don't you think that Mr. Ning Qin is very familiar?" White Feng Feng had a dazed expression. "I don't know him." "Well, that's not right. His figure is quite good. He's well-proportioned and tall." She shyly smiled as she spoke. Black Bebe was left speechless. How could she suddenly turn into a love-struck fool? "Cousin, do you think that Mr. Ning Qin might be senior Baoyu?" White Feng Feng sneered. "Are you blind? My family's big brother Baoyu is so handsome and elegant. He doesn't resemble Ning Qin at all. So how could they be the same person?" Black Bebe spat out a mouthful of blood. "Cousin, oh cousin, don't you know that there are things in this world called appearance-changing masks? Don't you know that there are some cultivation methods in this world that can allow one to change their appearance? Senior Baoyu is most likely the reincarnation of a peerless calamity, immortal realm powerhouse. It would be easy for him to grasp these little tricks." Ming Siyuan's expression was calm. It was just that his eyebrows were a bit stiff. He felt that it was necessary for him to return to the Great Desolate Lake headquarters and solemnly remind the Bai family's couple that they had to work harder in educating their child. If White Feng Feng weren't the Great Desolate Lake's young master, then with her current performance, she would absolutely be a character that would die in 2 episodes. Black Bebe laboriously explained. Then he took out an appearance-changing mask and changed into a living person on the spot. White Feng Feng's eyes brightened. Right. I was also curious. Ning Qin isn't that good-looking, so how could he possibly have such an amazing figure? Now that I think about it, he really is my big brother Baoyu's model. That's right, he is my big brother Baoyu, my big brother Baoyu. White Feng Feng turned and rushed out. Ming Siyuan's face darkened, and he stopped her. "Young master, I've already told you that you absolutely cannot reveal anything about fellow Taoist Baoyu. If you recklessly rush over like this, I fear you will draw trouble to yourself." White Feng Feng curled her lips. "But I miss him." "Young master, this is only our guess, so we can't confirm it for the time being. But he has helped the Great Desolate Lake, so it is reasonable for us to thank him afterwards. please wait patiently. Looking at White Feng reluctantly nodding her head, Ming Siyuan's thoughts stirred. Although the young master was young and didn't understand the dangers of the world, it was clear from her current performance that she had a favorable impression of fellow Taoist Baoyu. If she could really move fellow Taoist Baoyu and the two of them walk together, that would be a great thing for the Great Desolate Lake. Of course, the premise of all of this was that his guess was correct. Fellow Taoist Baoyu was indeed the reincarnation of a deva. Otherwise, while he was thankful, he didn't need to think too much about the matters above. This, although he didn't know what sort of treasure Ninth Province was, there was no doubt that it was precious and powerful. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it treasure furnace. To an alchemist, such a treasure was unimaginably precious. Qin Yu naturally thought of taking it for himself, but he was well aware that it was impossible for the South Shine Nation officials to agree to give him Ninth Province. Thus, when Yunilan asked for it just now, Qin Yu didn't hesitate to take it out. Yunilan waved his hand. "It's fine. You will still need to wait here for several more days." Without waiting for Qin Yu to speak, Yunilan gave an explanation. "I heard that in this great competition, there will be a great number of outstanding youths. The royal family has already sent out a special envoy who will arrive soon. At that time, the special envoy will appear and personally bestow the rewards." For some unknown reason, Qin Yu's heart throbbed. Although it vanished in the blink of an eye, it still left him puzzled. After hesitating for a moment, he cupped his hands together and said, "Revered Cloud, this junior still has important matters to attend to. Can I leave first and have Ian send a cultivator to accept the special envoy's rewards on my behalf?" Yun Elon shook his head. "The reason the special envoy came here today was to see a young talent like you. As for other trivial matters, let's put them aside for now. It won't take too long." His attitude was still warm, but Qin Yu's heart chilled. He respectfully bowed and sat down for a moment before standing up and bidding his farewells. Chapter 336. Qin Yu had a calm expression. After he returned to the residence that the South Shine Nation officials had arranged for him, his complexion darkened. As the champion of the competition, his treatment was naturally different from before. This residence was spacious and bright, and the decorations were luxurious and exquisite. But now that he was here, all Qin Yu could feel was a cold chill rising from the depths of his heart. Yun Elon refusing to let him leave wasn't normal at all. The greatest possibility was because of the heaven-defying demon puppet pill. Thinking of this, Qin Yu looked down at the shadow beneath his feet. His eyes shined. This shadow didn't seem any different to outsiders, but only Qin Yu knew that the strange life form summoned by the super demon puppet pill was currently in a shadow. Turning back to yesterday, after the competition results were announced, Zhao Jiuqian vomited blood and fainted. Ming Siyuan taunted and ridiculed him, and Yuan Tiangang gloomily led his people away. The competition came to an end, but not many people cared about the shadow that followed behind Qin Yu. After all, no matter how powerful a summon puppet was, it would naturally dissipate once the time was up. When everyone left, and Qin Yu was the only one left, it took a step forward without warning and directly fused into the shadow beneath Qin Yu's feet. Then, it brought Qin Yu a supernatural ability similar to instant movement, Shadow Step. Qin Yu had already tested it out. As long as he touched a shadow, he could use Shadow Step and instantly appear in any shadow within 10 miles. Moreover, the most heaven-defying aspect of Shadow Step was that it could ignore all shackles. As long as it was a shadow, it could be used. Although the maximum distance he could move was only 10 miles, Shadow Step was still an extremely heaven-defying supernatural ability that could preserve one's life. This caused Qin Yu to feel a little more at ease. If he really encountered danger, then with the Shadow Step's supernatural ability in hand, he might have a chance of escaping. As for leaving now, although Qin Yu hadn't entered Divine Soul, his soul force was extremely formidable. He could faintly feel that after he left Yun Ilan's dwelling, his aura wasn't quite right. It was only when he entered his dwelling that it vanished. But there was definitely still someone secretly monitoring him. If he used Shadow Step, he would likely face the teleporting Yun Ilan in the next moment. Chinyu took a deep breath and barely suppressed his tumbling thoughts. He comforted himself that perhaps he was overthinking things and the South Shy Nation officials didn't have any ill intentions. Chinyu took out Ninth Province and had it activate its defenses. Then he sat down cross-legged and swallowed several pills. The next day, someone knocked on the door. Chinyu expected that someone would come knocking on his door after he won first place. But he never imagined that it would be Cleansing Temple that came first. Yuan Tiangang smiled. He couldn't help but acknowledge that these Blue Sea Realm great figures were indeed shrewd and deep. At the very least, what Chinyu felt right now was a comfortable spring breeze. Ning Qin, it was my true self that misunderstood you. I hope you don't mind. With Yuan Tiangong's status, for him to say these words could be said to be filled with sincerity. Chinyu cupped his hands together in return. Revered Yuan's words are too heavy. This junior doesn't dare to accept them. Yuan Tiangang smiled. I know that you always have some resentment in your heart. This ancient jade is a small object that I obtained in my early years. I will give it to you. Don't refuse. This ancient jade can't be considered a precious treasure. Just think of it as a congratulatory gift from me for winning first place in the competition. Just accept it. Chinyu praised him inwardly. Disregarding his character, it was already commendable that this Blue Sea Realm super powerhouse of Cleansing Temple was willing to give up face to come here. But he absolutely couldn't accept this ancient jade. To put it bluntly, who knew whether or not this ancient jade had been tampered with? With a Blue Sea Realm cultivation, there were at least 10,000 ways to use this ancient jade to place Chinyu in a death trap. Revered Yuan, this junior swears that I have no intentions of disrespecting you. I ask that you take back your gift. Yuan Tiangang cursed inwardly at this slippery little bastard. This little bastard was quite vigilant. If he spoke any further, he feared that Chinyu would become even more suspicious of him. He smiled and said, Ning Qin, the reason I came here today is because I have a matter that I hope you can agree to. Seeing Qin use vigilance, he no longer beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Chinyu thought to himself, Revered Yuan, please speak. Yuan Tiangang maintained his composure. I hope that you can sell the treasure furnace remnant spirit you obtained in this competition to my Cleansing Temple. He had a sincere expression. Although the treasure furnace remnant spirit is precious, it isn't easy to use. Moreover, if there is a single mistake, it will cause great damage to the pill furnace that absorbs it. How about you trade it to my Cleansing Temple? I guarantee that I will give you an extremely generous price. As expected, he had come for the treasure furnace remnant spirit. The fleeting flame furnace wanted it, and Cleansing Temple also wanted it. It seemed that this thing wasn't ordinary. However, as he thought about how his situation today was all because of this treasure furnace remnant spirit, he bitterly smiled. He didn't know whether or not this trip was worth it. Chinyu was about to decline when there was a knock on the door once more. His thoughts stirred. He cupped his hands together and said, Revered Yuan, please wait a moment. He stood up and opened the door. As he expected, it was the people from the Great Desolate Lake. Chinyu's thoughts raced, and he soon made a decision. Although this was a bit risky, there was a chance that he could break the deadlock. No matter how bad the result was, it was better than being helpless and at the mercy of others. Ming Siyuan smiled and said, Little friend Ning Qin, I have come today to thank you. With just a few words, Chinyu had closed the distance between them. He couldn't help but have a favorable impression of him. Indeed, those that could reach the Blue Sea Realm weren't ordinary characters. Junior greets, Revered Ming. Chinyu smiled. You came just in time. Revered Yuan is also here. Ming Siyuan's eyebrows arched up, a cold intent in his eyes. Revered Yuan is also here. What a coincidence. Chinyu stepped to the side. Ming Siyuan smiled and nodded, walking in. Behind him, White Feng Feng stared straight at Qinyu, her face flushed red. If it weren't for revered Ming's instructions, she would have already cried out in joy. It was Big Brother Baoyu. It was Big Brother Baoyu. There was no mistaking this smell. Looking at this girl's expression, Qinyu knew that she had recognized him. Luckily, he had already experienced her sensitive nose before, so he wasn't too surprised. He only gave her a meaningful look to tell her not to speak carelessly. White Feng Feng nodded imperceptibly. She quickly walked behind revered Ming and gently pulled on his wide sleeves. Ming Siyuan maintained his composure, but the smile on his face became increasingly bright. Little friend Ning Qin, I was lucky to see you 2 days ago. Otherwise, my family's young master would have lost. What a pity. Although you helped the young master win a bet, there was actually someone who didn't care about face and pretended to be dead instead of fulfilling his promise. I'm left speechless. Qinyu secretly praised Ming Siyuan for being a good person. Just as he was worrying about how to find an opportunity, Ming Siyuan suddenly spoke up. He hurriedly said, "Is it the bet with fellow Taoist Zhao Juqian?" Ming Siyuan was startled. He didn't think that Qinyu would dare to respond to him. Could it be that this fellow Taoist Baoyu was also dissatisfied with Cleansing Temple? That would be for the best. Of course it's that, Junior. Perhaps there was some misunderstanding in the matter of plotting to kill the young master, and I have already agreed to give Cleansing Temple a chance to investigate. But this bet was signed in full view of everyone. Now that the result is out, I never thought that Cleansing Temple would want to shirk responsibility. Qinyu earnestly nodded. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. This is indeed not the way to do things. The two of them echoed each other and arrived at the entrance. No matter how thick Yuan Tiangong's skin was, his face was still a bit gloomy. In particular, what caused his heart to sink was that even though Ning Qin knew he could hear him, he still dared to echo Ming Siyuan's words. Could it be that there was some sort of agreement between the two of them? As soon as this thought appeared, he couldn't sit still. Ignoring Ming Siyuan's mocking eyes, he said, "Little friend Ning Qin, I am willing to pay a Davis soul in exchange for it. I wonder what you think." Ming Siyuan's complexion changed, revealing a look of shock. Although Qinyu had already made his decision, he still felt his heart surge with excitement as he heard this. He almost blurted out his agreement. The so-called Davis soul was not a treasure formed by the heavens and earth. Rather, it was a transcendent calamity, immortal realm existence that would have their soul shattered into millions of fragments when they died. Then, through a lucky chance, they would be condensed from soul fragments. One couldn't underestimate it. It was only a mere soul fragment. It had to be known that this was a Davis soul. Any nascent soul cultivator that obtained it could directly break into the divine soul realm after refining it. The value of this item was unimaginably high. It couldn't be purchased with spirit stones. The scene fell silent for a time. Only White Feng Feng had a clueless expression as she stared at Qinyu. Ming Siyuan's cold voice broke the silence. "Revered Yuan, does Cleansing Temple have a Davis soul? It's best if you don't joke about this sort of thing." Yuan Tiangang had no expression. "Revered Ming, since I have spoken, I will not speak without thinking. Ning Qin, as long as you agree, I guarantee that I will deliver the Davis soul to you within 10 days. Ming Siyuan's complexion darkened. If even a specific time limit was given, could there really be such a precious treasure hidden within Cleansing Temple? Qinyu sighed inwardly. If Yuan Tiangang could take out the Davis soul at this time, then perhaps he really would agree. After all, exchanging a treasure furnace remnant spirit that he didn't know how to use in order to rise his cultivation by an entire boundary was a great temptation to the current Qinyu. But 10 days later, the Southshine Nation royal family envoy had already arrived. There simply wasn't enough time. Although Qinyu felt regret in his heart, his expression didn't change at all. He lightly said, "The price that revered Yuan is willing to pay is indeed moving. But this junior really doesn't trust Cleansing Temple, so I can only decline your good intentions." At this time, even White Feng Feng, who had been staring at Qinyu, was shocked by these words. What was this? This was a public face slap. Moreover, the one being slapped was Yuan Tiangang. the face of a blue sea realm superpowerhouse. Pa! Pa! White Feng Feng's eyes shined. She held her hands against her chest, as if she couldn't breathe. Big brother Bao Yu, you are too amazing, too mighty, too domineering. I worship you so much. Yuan Tiangong's complexion paled. His eyes were as cold as a bone-chilling wind. Ning Qin, are you trying to offend me? Blue Sea's rage shocked the world. At this time, the space within the room nearly froze over. Every time Qin Yu gasped for breath, he felt as if countless knives were scraping across his windpipe, leaving behind a burning pain. But the more this was so, the calmer he became. His eyes were indifferent as he slowly said, "This junior was too blunt with his words. I ask revered Yuan to forgive me." Ming Siyuan nearly shouted out loud. What a swift and fierce stab. Blunt with his words, was there a stronger critical strike than this? Yuan Tiangang took a deep breath. All of his raging emotions were restrained like a tide. But his eyes became even colder. I don't know what promise you obtained that you would dare to be so insolent towards me, but I will soon have you understand that beneath the wrath of a blue sea realm, everything will be burned to ashes. In front of Qin Yu, Yuan Tiangong's eyes suddenly became deep and profound, like an endless abyss that could pull out a person's soul and swallow them up, causing them to fall into eternal darkness, never to be able to transcend. Ming Siyuan's complexion changed. Just as he was about to attack, he heard a light cough. Qin Yu's slightly confused eyes instantly restored their clarity. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.